wife's account.
Oh, Breaker Crunchers. It's Saturday night in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome to another exciting new episode of Couch Crunchers. Sam and I are here with our special guest, Matt from the Absolute Geek podcast.
Yay.
Matt, and, you're looking quite handsome tonight, Matt.
Oh, I know.
By the way.
This is what quarantine does to you, man.
And Travis said he was going to be here, so he'll be here a little bit later, I'm sure.
I couldn't grow a beard before quarantine. I can't grow a beard during quarantine. So that's where we're at.
So
nothing's changed.
I did these little characters of Travis and Matt that I'll show later in the show. And I put facial hair on Matt, like very light facial hair, because he kind of had a 5 o'clock in the picture that
I
was in.
appreciate a 5 o'clock. That's a compliment.
So I extenuated it a little bit, because without it, he looks like a 43-year-old lesbian. So he needed the facial hair.
And then he goes, "No, that's not true at all."
And then he goes, "No,
it's 100% true."
In the picture, he looked like, because you can't really. It's like all single color, right? There's Travis. So you can't see like any of, like, if you have like scars or anything like that. So he just looks very like plain skinned, you know what I mean? And it makes him look like a 43-year-old lesbian. And then Travis's, I did a cartoon of Travis, and Travis looks like a cross between Shia LaBeouf and Tom Holland.
Oh yeah, he looks very Shia LaBeouf, circa Even Stevens.
I'll take it over a 46-year-old lesbian.
Hey, I take what I can get. All right.
The real kicker was, he was like, "Take away the facial hair and give me freckles." And I was like, "Dude, you have freckles?" So he said, "Yeah, I have freckles." So I'm like, "Okay, dude, you're gonna have to send me a picture, because in the picture I don't see any freckles." He sends me a close-up, like literally 4 inches away from his face, of his freckles.
Count each one of those bad boys.
I have 3 freckles. Thank you.
So I send him.
Lance is like, "Yo, one of those freckles looks like it might be melanoma."
You should get that checked out.
So I sent him the picture with no facial hair and the freckles, and it thus increased the 46-year-old lesbian vibe without the facial hair. So we had to put some male testosterone in there and give him some facial hair. Matt, I love you.
I appreciate it. I mean,
it's a cool looking picture though. When I get my other computer, because I did it on that one, I'll send it out. We'll show it on here. But
look, I take my testosterone boosters every day. It just, sometimes when you grow up as trailer park as I did, it just doesn't grow in right. All right.
So Matt, I have to tell you something. After months of badgering from you and Max, I finally watched Doom Patrol, and I finished it.
Oh, that's good.
And it has to be one of the weirdest comic book shows I've ever seen in my life. Travis, Sam, have you guys seen Doom Patrol?
No.
Dude, it is so absolutely strange. There's a scene in probably, I want to say, the 10th or 11th episode, where they go into like a Supermax prison, kind of like an Arkham Asylum type thing, but I don't think they ever call it Arkham Asylum. It's the Bureau of Normalcy's like holding area, and the Doom Patrol lets all the people out of their cells, right? Because they're breaking everybody out. And in one of these cells, there is a swarm of just butts. Like, it's just butts with little legs, and they're going and attacking and just eating people and stuff, like through the butthole. And you're sitting there and you're like, what the hell am I watching? Matt, do you remember this scene?
Yeah.
It's just a swarm. Have you guys ever played Halo, when all those little mucus things come running after you?
No.
Same idea. You guys don't know what I'm talking about? Hive, the swarm.
Video games.
Matt, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, it's just a swarm of butts that are just eating. And they kind of allude to these butts through the whole show. They're like, "Oh, the butts. And you're like, what the hell is the butts? And then finally you see it is quite literally butts.
I like how Matt begrudgingly has to agree with Lance. Have you seen it? Yeah, I know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, I'm more taken back by the fact that he's like, man, flying butts are weird, but he doesn't pay attention to the fact that there's a portal in a donkey's ass, or
yeah, that's the other thing.
Or the first time you see what's his name's character?
Who's making the show? What network or what
it's DC
service
Universe.
First
but they go like hardcore then.
I can't think of his
like,
name.
It's definitely adult. It's not for children. And Max did not warn me of that. And I had my 7-year-old sitting in the room when we were watching the first episode, and just a pair of tits just flashed the screen. Yep. I'm like, oh, yeah, you got to leave now. You got to go.
You see Brandon Fraser's character plowing out his nanny right there, and snorting coke off of her and stuff.
I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
Cowboy butts drive Matt nuts, and I have to agree with that sentiment.
That's true. I will not deny that.
He has a special affinity for Billy Ray Cyrus's derriere.
Yep.
So
just don't tell my heart, my achy breaky heart.
Well, tonight we were going to talk about one of Matt's, I would have to say, one of his favorite movies, Brigsby Bear. He pleaded with us to watch this movie, and I gotta say, I'm glad that I watched it. It was not as widely advertised as some of the other movies that we've seen on this show. And
are we live? Are we live?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to come in late. I thought we were bullshitting.
So as you can see, listeners, Travis is the same.
Let's be professional, Travis. I know we're on Couch Crunchers, but come on.
I got a link like 2 minutes ago. I think the show started and the link was sent to me.
I know we're only on Couch Crunchers, but let's be professional, Travis. Come on.
Right.
So Travis is the same off camera that he is on camera, as you can see. There's literally no shift.
As we were talking, I'm like, this is good podcast material, guys. Let's get those robot butts live. Let's go live with those robot butts.
Do you think I just talk like this? Like I'm just talking about butts to 3 of my buddies. Like, guys, there's these asses. They just roll out of the cell. No. But as you can see, Travis has joined us. So we've already kind of introduced Matt, and everybody knows Matt very well. But Travis has been on the show a couple times. Some of our best episodes feature Travis.
Oh, so kind.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, the listener count shows it. So, but Travis is a podcast extraordinaire from Comic Exposure. So thank you for joining us tonight, my friend.
No problem.
You saw Brigsby Bear this week, right?
This week, yeah. I was going to ask. I sorry for interrupting. I was going to ask that same question. Whose idea was the Brigsby Bear?
It was Matt. So Matt brought up the idea about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've been wanting him to come on the show, and you know, with the movie theaters closed now and everything like that, we're just grasping at material to cover. You know,
we're just playing
we're playing catch up. Yeah. So Matt brought up the idea of watching Brigsby Bear. I had never heard of it before that, besides from Matt. I showed my wife the trailer. We still had no idea what it was about. The trailer does the movie absolutely no justice. It's just kind of like really silent, dramatic scenes showing all the characters, but you're like, what the hell is this movie about? At first you're thinking, do I need to be on shrooms to watch this movie? That's what the trailer kind of makes you think. But it's a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. So let's get into Brigsby Bear, and then we'll talk a little Faberflub and what we're watching. Try to get some more people to watch the things that we love. Sam, what were your initial thoughts of Brigsby Bear?
All right. So first off, I want to say that knowing Matt at the level that I do, I would never have expected this movie to come from him as a recommendation.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Well, you know, it is surprisingly warm-hearted. It's surprisingly it also like teetered on the edge of darkness. Like every time I thought it was going to take a very dark turn, it stopped right before crossing that dark line.
So what you're saying is Matt is a cold-hearted, extremely kind individual. Is that what you're trying to say? Like, no,
I'm not saying he's cold-hearted, but
I'm a sensitive soul.
The persona that he has curated here on the podcast and on Absolute Geek, I never would have thought he would have recommended something so warm and fuzzy as Brigsby Bear.
I'm a sensitive soul, though I seem thick-skinned, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying that constant references to Letterkenny would have never made you think that this was the movie that he would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it and I was like, what is this movie? The first half of the movie, I was so bewildered. Like, where is this going? After watching it, Matt, I mentioned to you that it reminded me of another small movie that I'm sure hardly anybody watched, which is called Safety Not Guaranteed, starring Mark Duplass and Aubrey Plaza.
Great movie.
Where it's just kind of a small dilemma. It doesn't get very big, but it involves time travel, and you're trying to figure out whether the guy who Mark Duplass plays is crazy or not, and it turns out he's not crazy. He's a time traveler, and he's got a job to do. And Brigsby Bear kind of reminded me of that with the tone, and it's not sci-fi or anything, but it is kind of bonkers the way that they framed this whole thing. The movie ended up for me just being about just being accepted. Right. It's kind of
despite your quirks, right?
Yeah, it's kind of an extreme example of the alienation that people feel growing up, I would say. I think we've all experienced to some degree a bit of alienation in the social circles where we frequent, and the kind of adjustment that takes place where you gradually get to share the things that you like with someone else, and they accept you for who you are. And quirks and all, you finally get accepted into a social circle. You find friends, you find family. And I think the reason why they did take the movie in the direction they did is because it was very relatable. I mean, they had opportunities to do a lot of dark things, but they I think, wisely
really grounded,
stayed away from that, so that it stayed relatable. It stayed very relatable through the movie. But I really enjoyed the movie, Matt. Thank you for the recommendation. I think there's a lot to uncover here.
So before we get into Travis's thoughts, I'm gonna save Matt for last because he absolutely adores this movie. So we'll move on to Travis. But before we get into that, I kind of missed the boat, and I should have framed this movie a little bit. This movie is about it's Kyle Mooney's character, who is living in this bunker, very blast from the past-ish, right? And you quickly find out that he's going through some traumas. There's a television show that he's absolutely addicted to, so we could relate on that point, right? And he's addicted to this television show. He finds out that this television show was just meant for him, and he sets out to make a movie. So it has a very feel of friends getting together and doing something that they love, and kind of discovering discovering just new things that you know were out there before. The scene where they're sitting in the movie theater, and he has this, they're watching like this just dumb movie. It reminded me of Mighty Ducks. I think it was kind of
it's a Mighty Ducks parody.
Yeah. So they're watching this movie, and it's just a ridiculous movie. It's probably a movie that would have flopped if it wasn't Mighty Ducks, just a ripoff of it. But he has this just realization, like, oh my gosh, there's all these things out here, and there's other shows and other movies besides Brigsby Bear. And then he decides to make his own movie. So after I frame that a little bit, Travis, give us your thoughts on Brigsby Bear.
First, congratulations. That's 2 Brendan Fraser references in like 10 minutes. That's impressive for 2020.
Right?
When he Googles himself today, he's going to be real happy with his Google alerts. And also, second note, Matt doesn't fool me. I know Matt's a big teddy bear.
I agree.
He watches This Is Us. Now he watches Brigsby Bear. He probably has a Teddy Ruxpin somewhere in his house.
I used to, not anymore.
Yeah. I think this movie I was aware of it when it came out, like Lance mentioned before. I don't think the trailer does the tone of the movie justice. I remember watching the trailers to it. I was like, I guess I'm kind of interested in this, but it looks like one of those movies that's just kind of going to take like a weird framing device and be weird for the sake of being weird. And sometimes those can be successful. Sometimes they can't. So I was waiting for people in my circle of friends to be like, you should check it out. And that never happened. So it just kind of just disappeared for me. But watching it, for me, I also, for me, this movie checked off 3 boxes that I really love. And I think a lot of my conversations today are going to come from these: nostalgia, fandom, and creativity. There's a lot of, I think, lenses you can view this movie from, but I thought that it was very appropriate. I'm like, why, if we're going back and watching kind of older movies, why this one? And it became very apparent. I'll be interested to see why Matt thought it was such great for the podcast. But as a group of people who sit every week and, you know, talk about fandom, and we bring up, I mean, how many nostalgic references do we make? It seems to try to have a conversation about nostalgia that is often, I feel like, in the last 4 or 5 years, looked at as a negative way, like a way of stunted growth. You know, we talk about, especially being in the comic book world, right, guys? I mean, there's this sense of like, am I just a stunted child? But like, no, I really love this stuff, and I think there's importance to it. And then we go off and we create our own things based on this. You know, we create these podcasts that are based on fandom and nostalgia and all this stuff. So I think that this is a perfect movie to talk about for a bunch of 30-something podcasters who read comics and watch old films. I was like, why am I not in this movie? I feel like Nicolas Cage on SNL. Why am I not in this movie? Yeah, so those are kind of my 3 notes: nostalgia, fandom, and creativity, which I'll kind of get into a little bit more as we go around the horn.
Matt, your thoughts on this movie? Why did you recommend it?
You know, I love this movie. I'm huge in independent movies. I know you guys review a lot of big budget blockbusters and popular movies on here, but there's a lot of great independent stuff out there that you might miss if you're not paying attention to it. And I love indie movies. Indie movies is my niche. And I saw Brigsby Bear on a recommendation, kind of like what I gave you guys, and absolutely fell in love with it. I mean, I thought it was perfect for this show, and specifically this group, because we sat here a few months ago and dissected, and I mean dissected, Parasite. Right. And there's so many layers to Parasite, and I think there's so many layers to Brigsby Bear too. There's so many ways you can view this movie, and I think there's a lot of ways you can relate to this movie, like what it goes to be accepted, and feeling awkward and feeling out of place, and kind of just not knowing where you belong. And I feel like that movie really touches on that a lot, and in friendship, and just kind of the way people view the world, and how you can choose to let trauma define you. And I just thought that this is a perfect movie for this core group of people to talk about.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. So we'll get into spoilers here in just a sec. So I think that this movie, when you said it was produced and written by the guys from Lonely Island, right? Because Kyle Mooney is the starring.
Kyle Mooney wrote it. The Lonely Island guys produced it, but Kyle Mooney wrote this movie.
So I
thought he came up with the story idea and then like co-wrote it. There was another screenwriter attached to it, I believe, right?
I'm not sure. I know he's got a writer's credit on it though. So
yeah.
So when you say Kyle Mooney, who is of course popular from the Lonely Island and SNL, and you think of the Lonely Island, you start thinking of things like Dick in a Box and all these other ridiculous things that, you know, Sports is one of my favorite songs that if you haven't picked up the Lonely Island album on Apple Music or Spotify or something, go listen to it. And it is not at all like this movie. It is in fact a polar opposite. This movie has heart in it. I don't think there's any really like dick and fart jokes in it whatsoever. But this movie was just kind of a showcase of somebody that has experienced extreme trauma, that should be basically falling apart because of this trauma. And he kind of pulls himself together rather quickly for the idea of making this movie. And the people around him are like, why are you doing this? Like, you should be this broken shell of a person. Like, you figured out all these things happened to you. Why are you making this movie? They're in fact worried that he's making this movie, and they try to rectify, try to get him to stop making this movie because they think it's self-deprecating behavior. The end of the movie, of course, I mean, it's like any other movie of this nature. I mean, ends in a happy ending and things like that. So, but let's get into spoilers about it real quick. So the biggest thing about this movie was the reveal that he fairly quickly into the movie that he was kidnapped by Mark Hamill's character. In the trailer of the film, you think that Mark Hamill is his father, right? You kind of get that vibe.
James' father. We're going to use that character's probably name a lot, right? James is the main character.
That's
James. Yes, thank you. I could not remember it for the life of me. Yeah, so we think that Mark Hamill is Jamin
the Bear the Third.
Oh, that's
pleased to meet you.
That's Jamin's daddy.
So we think that this is James's legitimate father, and you quickly find out that no, in fact, he was kidnapped as a small child.
Well, I just want to say real quick, you were talking about the trailer, and I think the trailer's cut like that purposely because that reveal that James was kidnapped is a huge reveal that sets up the entire movie.
Right.
So I think if they revealed that in the trailer, that destroys and ruins the entire movie.
Yeah, I agree. I know they had to be somewhat secretive through the trailer. It gives it the tone of the trailer makes you think that you're getting into a completely different movie. I think if the goal is to try to create a trailer to get people to watch this movie, I don't know if it succeeded in that goal. It could have found a way to at least give you some premise, maybe showing that he's a kid that really wants to make this movie, but they don't really do that so much. It's just a kind of really artsy scenes, and it reminded me a lot of those. Did any of you watch Legion on FX?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The really trippy scenes of Legion where he's kind of like going through a psychosis and it's like Willy Wonka's tunnel type thing. Yeah. That's what the trailer reminded me of. A lot of cut scenes of that going down Willy Wonka's tunnel, essentially, with the weird freaky colors and things like that. And there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue in the trailer or anything. So you don't get any sort of feel for what kind of movie this is. What mood should I be in when I watch this movie? Should I be on any psychedelics whatsoever while I'm watching this movie? It doesn't do any of that. So if the goal is to get people to watch your movie, the trailer did not succeed in that. And I think that's why I didn't really hear about it before Matt said something.
Nor does it hit. It doesn't hit when you see Kyle Mooney so attached to SNL. The movie doesn't suggest the trailer doesn't suggest its demographic. So if you're like me, you're like, is this something I'd be interested in? And I wait for that word of mouth. And I think that maybe there wasn't enough exposure that I didn't get that soon enough. Took 3 years later to get it. But yeah, the trailer was, I think, an issue with how many people saw this movie.
And I can really say that that's probably the only issue I have with the movie is just kind of the advertising that went behind it. Because not even the box art really, like the poster and stuff, really tell you exactly what the movie is about. It's just Kyle Mooney running around in a bear costume, and you're like, what is this? You know what I mean? In fact, I made the show thumbnail for tonight before I saw the movie. I had no idea what the movie was about, and it's interesting in hindsight to see what my thinking was going into making that. I kind of took all our faces and put them on various cartoon bears. Right.
And I messaged you and I was like, you're probably going to want to change that thumbnail because that's like way off.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the movie. And if it did have anything to do with the movie, it's a very small part of it. Kyle Mooney dressed up in a bear suit. That's not what it is at all. But I watched the trailer, I read the synopsis, and then came up with that show thumbnail, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the movie. And if that was my thinking going into it, a guy that watches quite a few movies, more movies than probably the normal person watches, more TV shows than the normal person watches, and that's my thinking going into it. They definitely missed the mark. But I gotta say, the performances in here were all spot on. There's not a single weak performance in this entire movie. The direction of the movie was spot on. They never got too far away from, they had humor in it, but it never distracted from the heartwarming feelings that you were supposed to have watching this movie. And it kind of reminded me of myself with fandom, right? Travis brought that point up earlier of just how we all have this fandom with Sam and his anime, and me with my collectibles and movies and stuff like that. Matt has his comic book infatuation. Travis has comic books as well, and movies and things like that. We all have these fandoms, so we definitely relate to this character who loves this show so much that he wants to make it a part of his life.
Well, I think, but isn't that the great thing about movies, though, is that when you go in and you sit down and you're expecting one thing and you get surprised with something else? I feel like Hollywood today is so predictable. You sit down to watch a movie and you're like, this is how this is going to play out. And it plays out exactly like this, that, or you're able to guess the ending acts before it happens, like in the first act. And that's what I love about Brigsby Bear is that you look at it and it surprises you. It's not what you think it's going to be. And
yeah, I want to
go ahead,
tune in on that. So there were so many beats where I thought they were going to take this in a very dark and dreary direction. What kind of trauma is he experiencing from finding out that he was kidnapped? And every time they have a chance to explore trauma, James just shrugs it off, and he's like, "Yeah, but what about Brigsby?" That's his response to all of the exploration questions.
It was his anchor,
and every time the psychologist played by Claire Danes is trying to dig deep, all she ever finds underneath the surface is Brigsby. Right? So she's trying to pull something away, and every time it goes in a lighter direction than what you expect it to do. And so I think
the film. I think you're right. The film. A lot of the other characters in the film want to portray. They want to every other, like a lot of the characters, the parents, the psychologists. They want to take it and turn it into that movie. But Kyle Mooney's character refuses to see himself as a victim, and so therefore that's a very good point. Like it seems like all the other elements of the movie are like working so hard to take you into that 90s indie, like, Good Will Hunting style movie, where at the end we get the, it's not your fault, Will. It's not your fault, and he's like, it's not my fault. But Kyle's character doesn't. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Well, I think, go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say it's very much that way because he uses Brigsby, which is a huge trigger of his trauma and should be a trigger that sends him spiraling out of control. And he kind of harnesses it as a way to get better, because there's that end scene where he's going through the movie and it's, what about Brigsby? But what about Brigsby? And every time, like you guys said, he hits that wall or someone tries to pull something out, it's Brigsby, Brigsby, Brigsby. And then you get to the end and he finishes the movie and you see Brigsby standing on stage and he kind of gives him that nod of, I'm okay. So he used his mission to finish that movie kind of as I'm accepted, I'm going to be okay type moment. And that's he kind of used that character to protect himself. And as he felt like he was finally okay and going to be make it through, he let that character go. And then you see Brigsby disappear, like that chapter of his life is closed and finished and he's starting anew. So
go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, that's all I'm gonna say is like he really used something that should have been so traumatic to him as a strength to help him pull through the other situation that's going on and get acclimated back into society. And all of a sudden, overnight he's got a new family, a new mom and dad, a new sister, friend, trying to figure out the world. Like when when they're bringing him in the cop car, because you see like the lengths that these characters, that Mark Hamill's character and his wife went to destroy this kid. They made up fake accounts. They made up fake props, around the place. They made up a fake disease called Skincer disease that we're told if you go outside without an oxygen mask on, you're going to get poisoned. And you just see how he faces all this stuff. And Brigsby is always that pillar for him that he comes back to, that I think ultimately gets him through it.
I think one of the best parts of that whole movie is when he realized, like, he has kind of a podcast, right? And he's thinking he's speaking to real people about Brigsby Bear, right? It's a Brigsby Bear forum. And then he realizes, oh no, he was just talking to Mark Hamill and his wife's character the entire time. And he goes, so Brigsby Boy 1, Brigsby Boy 2, 3, those were all fake? He goes, yes, James, those are fake.
Girl 1?
And he goes, what about Brigsby Girl? like almost like you're going to have this realization that he was trying to have like a romantic relationship with Brigsby Girl and then realize that, oh yeah, it's actually his mother. But I think coming off of Travis's and Matt's point, I think the reason is that he didn't really feel like he went through any trauma. He was taken as a young boy. This was his life. His fake parents, I guess you could call them, treated him well, right? They loved on him. They wanted to see him succeed. They were trying to teach him family. They were trying to teach him manners and things like that, and things to be an upstanding human being. So he didn't experience trauma. The trauma comes when he's ripped out of his life.
Right.
Yep. And then everybody he sees after that point is trying to tell him that he should feel a certain way. And because he doesn't feel that certain way, he gets thrown in an insane asylum and he does all these other things. And he's like, listen, I'm okay, but I need to see the end of this Brigsby Bear thing out. That's all that matters to him. It doesn't matter that he was ripped away from his family. He's not feeling any trauma. It's just everybody else trying to tell him how to feel. And I guess we could kind of, I've been watching Defending Jacob on Apple TV with Chris Evans. And there's a scene in there where the boy, they're all at the funeral and everything. And the boy says, all these people, they didn't know this kid that died. They're just acting this way because people told them they should act this way. And we kind of go through that in other aspects of life, right? When people are telling us that we should feel a certain way and you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel that way. So how do you cope with that? Right? Is something wrong with you? I think that's what James is going through, is trying to understand what his feelings are. And the only way he can do that is by accomplishing this movie.
I think that at the end of the movie, it is that catharsis and you have that great relief. It's a really touching moment. But I feel like that's when the trauma is really going to begin. Brigsby Bear is like this Band-Aid. It's the salve to that, keeps him from looking at that. And like the trauma's there. It's just he hasn't been in the world enough to recognize it. Once he starts realizing like you stole a lot of the things, he doesn't know like about like first kisses and proms and all these things.
Life
he hasn't let that in. And I think once that's let in, then it's like, oh no, those people were like monsters. They stole a lot of my childhood, and the only but he's hanging on to that childhood that they gave him, that Brigsby Bear. So once he's seen that through, he does that final wave to Brigsby in there, and I think that's when the trauma is going to begin, and therefore like the real like healing will begin on there.
It was the transition into the next chapter.
Yeah, maybe
of his life. That was kind of like the bookend of that chapter, and then now he's going to go in, and now he can deal with something else. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I liked all the nods to growing up that were in Brigsby Bear, like that Mark Hamill put in the videos he was making for him, like the math problems. They're talking about like masturbation and things like that. Like I just like all those little life lessons that were thrown in there out of nowhere, and how they're talking about this crystal, and then they start breaking down this math problem and just or telling them how to recycle. And make sure all the trash goes in the yellow receptacle. And
that's very like 80s TV, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I also want to say that I thought it was kind of on the nose that they called the villain the Sun Snatcher, right? It's just a funny way, it's like a synonym for kidnapper, right? The Sun Snatcher, kidnapper.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I love how when what'd you call him? Jamad. Jamad is talking to his dad about like the show, and his dad creates it. So he's like, "No, you're wrong. Like, what about when this happens?" And it's like, it made me think about all the creators. I mean, of like comics, we do all these shows and movies. And if someone were to listen to one of them, be like, "No, you're wrong. What about this?" As like the creator having to listen to that feedback without them knowing, like, you're the creator of this, right? And he's like, yeah, you misread that,
But you feel
when you masturbate, you want to go dry.
Yeah.
If you're using too much lube, you're gonna lose all. You're gonna get.
That favorite part was when he tells him, "Only touch your penis twice a day."
Yeah. But you get that feeling watching Brigsby episodes, though, that Mark Hamill's character felt remorse and felt regret for them kidnapping him as a child because of that Sun Snatcher name and things and other things that are in there. So you kind of feel that. And even like when he goes to visit him in prison, and he was like, she came home and I didn't know what to do. So
absolutely.
Oh, tears when he starts
right?
when he's like, "Oh, you want me to read this? All right, I'll read." He's doing this for like his son, like a favor for his son. And the Hamill's like face says it all. He's like, I'm kind of curious to see how this thing ends, and he turns and starts reading the script. Just boom, just water, just coming down, just draining. I'm like, oh God.
So my wife, when watching that scene of him doing the voices, right, and reading the script, my wife goes, "Wow, he's really good at that. He should do more voice acting." I was like, Anna, he's only been doing the voice of the Joker for 20 years. Like, like he's got a lot of voice acting, trust me. But yeah, I thought that was so funny. Anna didn't realize that this guy has been doing voice acting for, you know, this was his art. He's a better voice actor than he is even an actor, if you could argue that. But the movie just has so many moments of just tugging at your heartstrings. In a moment where you should feel, you know, a similar movie, not similar as far as tone or anything, but a similar kind of storyline, I guess you could say, is Room with Brie Larson, where in the very early in the movie, it's found out that she's been kidnapped. She has a child from her abductor. Thank you. And seeing through all like the trauma that her and her child go through after they've been rescued, right? And just this self-destructive behavior that they're going through. And that's how we have been conditioned to think how we should feel in a situation like that, right? And meanwhile, this kid is still going and visiting his captor father, I guess you could say, in jail, and still has these feelings for them. Like, how could you not have feelings for that person, right? That person raised you. That person is the reason you are who you are.
The moment in the jail was interesting. It's very interesting because it gives you a sense that Mark Hamill didn't view himself as a kidnapper. He kind of felt like, oh gosh, I guess I'm as much a captive here as this kid because my wife has kind of thrown us into this situation, and now I'm stuck. So I'm gonna do what I can to make this a good situation. He seemed as much a victim as James or Jamin or whatever you want to call him. At that moment, before then, you're like, okay, he's perpetrated this great crime, and he never did anything like the scene with Greg Kinnear's detective, and he says, "Did he touch you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he touched me." And he's like, "Okay, well, let's talk about that." Right? It's another moment where it could have taken a darker turn, and James says, "Well, no, it's not dark. It was this," and it was you know. Aside from the fact that he's a victim of a kidnapping, otherwise it was healthy. You know, it's a handshake, maybe a pat on the back, and that's it.
That part was so funny, dude.
It was
I laughed so hard.
Really, like that was the moment when I realized, okay, they're not going to take this in the darkest possible direction. This is like going to be a different kind of movie, right? But that leads me to another moment that I thought was really interesting, which is when he goes to visit the waitress who had played a part in the show, in the Brigsby Bear show. And she's ready to feel crushing guilt. You know, like she's an accomplice to this crime of kidnapping, and she feels guilty and she feels remorse. And he's there to say, "No, don't feel guilty. I'm in love with you. I think you're great, and I want you to continue to portray the character in the show." And it essentially lets her off the hook of that guilt, and she's able to let it go. And it's a very interesting moment, and it's clear to me that the way that this kid processes trauma is very different from the way that is portrayed a lot of times. And the way that people react to so-called damaged people, you know, you got to put your kid gloves on. You got to feel very guilty about it. And maybe it's not as bad in every case. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? What did you think of that scene?
I've done a lot of television shows in dudes' basements, you know, for kids. And every time I leave, you know, they pay me and then I leave. There's a sense of guilt that comes with that. But I was able to get some of my best performances. And am I upset about it? A little, but I mean, I got a great reel. But
I mean, it's that crushing guilt that comes back because he told her that it was for Canadian public access TV. So he tells her that it's for something completely different. And it's not until the news story breaks about James and them bringing him back that people find out the extent that this went to. And she finds out her involvement in all of this. And yeah, she feels guilty. I think one of the best scenes in this movie, too, is when they're at the therapist's office and he's talking about Brigsby, and the dad, his real dad, freaks out and says, "These people took you from us. They destroyed our lives. Don't you get that?" And James is kind of taken aback. He's like, "You don't understand." Like, that's kind of where you see what one of you guys was talking about earlier, that his trauma happened when he was ripped from the family he knows and sent back to these other people, and what he's going through now. Because he says, "You just don't understand." And James says to him, "You don't understand what you're talking. You don't know what you're talking about. You just don't understand." Because James doesn't see that. You know, he sees those people as doing the bad thing, not his captors. And there's a very good confliction there. And I don't know. I just think it makes a strong movie.
I think we're all agreeing that we like this aspect of it, that they don't take it into that victim kind of room scenario. But I wonder if there's a segment of people who watch this movie who feel that is an injustice, and that takes it away from the movie, that it doesn't raise the stakes enough because we don't have that trauma in there. I mean, that trauma there, as Sam was saying, adding that in there in some degree would be a way to raise the stakes in this movie. If I had one criticism, the stakes in this movie aren't extremely high at any point. I don't feel like even the accomplishing of the Brigsby movie isn't going. I don't know. I feel like, you know, that would have been a way to raise the stakes. I like how they didn't, because I haven't seen that before. So that, for me, that novelty allowed me to forgive, kind of like, well, you know, there wasn't any sense of real danger, because I never felt that Kyle's character, Jamanoid, was gonna be okay whether he finished the movie or not. The only sense where I felt Jamiroquai was in trouble was when he was in the insane asylum, and that was where you felt like, oh no, if we don't get this fixed, this could be what his life looks like. Do you think that there's some backlash? I didn't read reviews on it, see if there's like what critics thought of it.
You know what's interesting is I did see one review, and the review was, "Go see Brigsby Bear. I don't want to say too much because if I say anything, it will spoil everything." That was the entirety of the review. That's why the trailer is what it is.
Yeah,
you know, the same reason. No, there was another scene in there where Andy Samberg makes a surprise appearance, right? Yeah, you mentioned that everything was strong about the performances, and for me, Andy Samberg's cameo was my least favorite part. I felt like it's forgettable. Well, not that it was forgettable, but it was like wink, wink. This is the guy who's producing, and I felt like him and the other SNL guy who was the hard-nosed detective. I don't know his name. Beck Bennett. Yeah. I felt like they put in my least favorite performances in this movie. Everyone else seemed very heartfelt. Yeah. But those two characters seemed like they were a little too on the nose or a little too cartoonish.
If Beck Bennett's character had come in and was able to talk about raising those stakes by being a real oppositional force that could stop the catharsis of that character in a real way, maybe a couple of times, more of an impact. So you see a sense of menace to that character, even in a casual way. I think that would have helped. But there really isn't. Beck and the psychologist are really like the two kind of forces that are some of the greatest forces that are keeping Jumanji. Jumanji, thank you, from that final catharsis on there. And they never get close enough where you're like, ooh, when they come into a scene, you're like, not this guy again. What's he going to bring, or what's she going to bring that's going to disrupt the progress that we've made so far?
And there's points where you think that's going to happen, specifically with Beck Bennett's character, when he's like, you know, I watched your show, a few episodes actually, and you think something's going to come out of this, but nothing comes out of it, right? Nothing happens, because he just says this thing, and then it's just kind of, it doesn't really play any role into what's going on in James's life, you know.
Well, I think the two of them, Claire Danes and Ben Beckman, they are the stand-ins for the system, right? The rules, the very hard line approach to enforcing the rules and therapy. You know, it is by the book. This is how you're supposed to feel. You need to address it in a certain way. Whereas everyone else is taking their cues from James, or James, whatever you guys are calling him now.
I believe it's Jamocha Jack in the Box Shake.
And that's from Arby's. Get it right.
Sorry.
So they're all taking their cues from him, and he's taking his cues from Brigsby Bear, who is the conception of a kidnapper's idea of educational television. And so it's just it's all backwards. Like he's infecting the world with his idea of Brigsby Bear, rather than them pushing the rules on him and controlling him. He's coming into the world and he's creating a new world, right? That's the whole idea behind that movie, right? It's the analogy for what he's doing with his life, is he's creating a new world where he can go and start over.
But I like that it has that underlying message, though, too, of that maybe sometimes in life, instead of judging somebody, you need to see things from their perspective or on their level, meet them on their level. And I think that's what his group of friends do. Like his parents are trying to change him, but the detective meets him on his level. You know, when he gets invested in being in the movie, his friends, they meet him on his level. You know, it's kind of, they meet him there in his safe space, and then he's able to come out and flourish and show you what he's capable of and who he is. And like you kind of get that feeling too when James gets excited when they tell him, well, you know, your captors created this show for you, and he gets excited that his dad was there and that his dad made Brigsby Bear. And then he asks, well, who's taking over it? Who's doing it now? Who's going to take over doing it? And they're like, you don't understand. He made it just for you. And you know, you just pick up on those underlying tones where maybe it kind of gives you that perspective of maybe you just need to meet people on their level, instead of don't be so quick to judge before you get to know somebody.
That's a good point.
And
I have a question.
Go ahead, Travis.
For you guys, do you think that the public's reception in the film, the fictional public in the film, their reception of the Brigsby Bear show when it becomes popular on the internet and when they have that screening at the end of it, is there a sense that they're laughing at, like, it's like one of those internet things where it's so stupid that it's just one of those stupid things that it is, oh yeah, look at this stupid bullshit over here. This was created by like a kidnapped boy. And are they laughing at it? Because at the end, when they get that big applause, you know, are they just applauding? Like, is it the way you might someone who's autistic or struggles with some sort of mental handicap, you would celebrate anything that they do? Or do you think the people in this film are like, that is this kitschy piece of nostalgia that actually holds up?
I don't think so. I think that there's moments of that, because we saw like only touch your penis twice a day, or, you know, there was some stupid moments. But as we learned in the beginning of the film, they pull an incredible amount of like science and things like that, like actual like worthwhile subject material into this show. So I think there's a balance. Maybe there are some people that are looking at it from look at this stupid thing aspect, and there's other people who are like, oh wow, this is actually kind of, I wish Sesame Street was like this, right? Like going this far down into all these theories and things like that.
His friend character, the other guy friend character, kind of elevates the craftsmanship of it. You know, that Mark
Right.
Wahlberg's character put into it. That kind of helps.
Mark
I guess,
Wahlberg
right?
was in this movie.
Great Kinnear. You're thinking about Great Kinnear.
I'm thinking about Ted. I'm thinking about the movie Ted. Too many teddy bears. What the fuck is with this teddy bear? You didn't touch me, I swear.
It's a
Like
transformer.
Woody Allen. I don't know why I'm doing like Woody Allen. Like the bear, it's fine. You didn't touch me at all.
The teddy
way
bear
too good
became a
at that, dude.
transformer.
I would love Woody Allen and Mark Wahlberg to be in a movie together. That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome, dude. Oh man.
To respond to your question there, I mean, to me, I was watching this thinking, I don't know that the reception would be as warm if you didn't have the filmmaker in the theater with you, right?
Mhm.
But then thinking about it, you're like, well, The Room, right? Not the Brie Larson Room, but the Oh Hi Mark, right?
Oh,
That type of film was well received, but not for the reason that Tommy Wiseau originally intended. He thought it was an Oscar-worthy performance, but people responded to it warmly because it was so unintentionally hilarious. And what we're made to believe here with respect to Brigsby Bear is that while there is a lot of kind of so bad it's good reception, people are responding to it well, not because of that, but because of they're seeing the message behind it. They're connecting with it.
I love The Room. I love The Room. That is an Oscar-worthy movie. Tommy Wiseau deserves an Oscar for best director of all time in the universe for that movie.
Yeah.
I would have just loved to be on that set for like 2 days and just be a fly on the wall.
Well, you like Matt. You like that
Joker?
kind of. You like that kind of unintentional humor. Like you guys have been talking about Tiger King a lot, and you know you're just talking about The Room and things like that. So like Brigsby Bear, if that was a real show that you like, all right, guys,
Yeah,
absolute geek tonight.
probably
We're talking Brigsby
100%,
Bear.
100%.
Yeah.
You almost want somebody to kind of make it, right?
Yeah.
Just so we
Yeah.
can see how ridiculous it would be.
It's real grade A buffoonery.
Oh, thanks, man. That's the plug.
Yeah.
and I love how he takes to like the twin characters, and he takes to the one girl, but he absolutely does not like her twin sister, and it's the same girl.
He's like, "Oh, Jill, I'm gonna miss you. See you, Nina."
Yeah.
I laughed.
And the fact that Mark Hamill's character had to read that, you know, like he gets to that part in the script and like he just goes back to that place of what he thought about that girl. It's just like
See you, Nina. Oh man, this movie has so many like subtle puns, not puns, that's not the right word, but just subtle moments of comedy that you don't even like expect it when it's coming, right? Because this movie has so much heart on the ground level that every so often are like, hey, we understand you're a human being, you need to laugh sometimes, so here's this little, but it fits into the narrative, right? Here's this little thing to give this movie its other dimension, because Kyle Mooney is a comedian, right? That's his art, that's his profession. He's a comedian. It's his primary skill. But what this movie proves to me is how good a lot of these comedians are at pulling off these dramatic performances. We're seeing it more and more as of late. That there's Adam Sandler's done it a couple times, and even Will Ferrell. One of my favorite movies, not favorite movies, but it's a really good movie, is Stranger Than Fiction with him, and I think he does a really good job in it. But we see how they're able to understand how people react to certain things, and they're able to pull that into their performance, right? People that really understand the art of comedy, and Kyle Mooney just kind of proves that.
I think Everything Must Go is one of Will Ferrell's best.
That's a good one too, with the garage sale and everything
Mm-hmm.
like that. Yeah, that's a great movie. But Adam Sandler did it with Punch Drunk Love. I think it's a fantastic movie. A lot of people argue against or for Uncut Gems, but I think Punch Drunk Love is the true testament to how good of a dramatic actor he can be. And then have you guys seen Funny People?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All three of those guys did a really good job in that as well, in some more dramatic performances. But so does it feel like I had a question and I lost it?
Well, I'll go on what you're talking about, Kyle Mooney's performance in here. I think it's a strong, dramatic performance, but I think it's kind of like floaties in a pool, because you see this sometimes when you have movies with characters who are playing someone who's mentally handicapped or some sort of they have this kind of socialization issue. Is acting is all about reacting and acting off other characters, but because he is so stunted, socialized, that his delivery, he's not reacting in realistic ways in these conversations with some of the big heavy hitting actors like Greg Kinnear, because it is this like, no, I'm this note. And so it's because I can't socialize with you. Of course, my response, I'm not listening. We're not, having that at actors back and forth. I'm responding to your social nuances the way like another role would, but because these socially kind of awkward characters, there's less of a need to have that
facade
reflection back and forth. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh, yeah.
So think about the moment where they're sitting at the picnic table and Greg Kinnear's detective is telling him about, I used to be an actor, and he starts doing his Shakespeare in the park. And then Kyle Mooney's character,
Giuseppe
Verdi, he says,
"I'm gonna die, dude." He says, like, Mark Wahlberg gets nothing. I get Jamocha shake from Arby's for the whole night.
Because you should still act. Why did you stop? You should still be chasing that dream,
right?
And that's something that somebody who's been socialized might not have the guts to say. They might not be able to say the truth in such a direct and honest fashion. And that's part of the charm of someone who comes in as an outsider and is struggling to socialize, who's kind of an alienated person. He comes in and he sees all the false pretenses that people are putting up, and he kind of breaks through the social reasons for those facades. And I think it's kind of hard for the adults in the movie to accept what James is doing until they realize that it's not coming from a dark place. And I think that's why they keep trying to push this kind of darkness on him, is because they're terrified for him, and they want to see his trauma as dark as their trauma was. But it never does reach that dark point. So, the alienation part comes in and it breaks through the facades, and so it's kind of a give and take. They're appreciating him for his honesty, and then he's appreciating them for their compassion, and they're reaching out to him on that social level.
Yeah, I was thinking about the fact that, like, for Kyle Mooney does his delivery, and then the rest of the actors have to react to that. It's less of Kyle reacting to their performances because he is like this thing on there. So for an actor,
it probably is even harder.
Oh, you think? Oh, yeah.
I don't know. How do you think? Do you think that's harder or easier?
Well, I think you can practice your delivery. Like, he's had this movie in his head. He's had this character in his head for a long time. So he can practice those deliveries and not worry about, like, in that scene, you're reacting off of me. I'm less reacting off of you. So it doesn't matter how you deliver your line. I'm going to be like, cool backpack, dude.
Right.
And it doesn't change the way, like, however you deliver that previous line. My goal is I'm looking at your backpack, cool backpack, dude. Or no, Brigsby's the best show of all time. Whatever it is.
But I think what marvels me about Kyle Mooney's character, because I agree with you, like, now that you've said that, like, yes, it probably is easier because he can kind of practice that. But he transitions halfway through the film where he starts to learn how to speak to people a little bit more, and he has to kind of change his character a little bit. And I think that transition is so seamless. I think that's where the difficulty comes in, because by the end of the movie, he's becoming a little bit more socially accessible, I guess you could say, where you can have a decent conversation with him when you're talking about things that he likes and things like that. But you also see in the beginning of the movie where he's trying really hard to adapt socially, like when he adopts that dope as shit. How he says that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to learn how these people work, and he's trying to speak their lingo and be accepted and things like that. Like I think that would be incredibly difficult, but
it's when he's in those woods, like the woods, the field scenes is where he is when he's outside both societies, outside the captive society and outside the society of man. That seems to be when he's most natural and where he's most like, oh, you couldn't tell this person. All that kind of pretense is kind of stripped away from him, and it feels like he's just a friend hanging out with friends right on there. And that's where the cinematography gets the most cinematic and most ethereal too. Those are some really beautiful shots there, those field scenes, and like the way they do that. It's very music video like.
Now he didn't direct this, right? It was
no, he didn't.
Drew McCary, I think, was that who did this one? Yeah, Drew McCary or Dave McCary, excuse me. He directed, but Kyle.
You're batting 1,000 with the names today.
But he, Kyle Mooney only wrote this, correct?
Yeah. I think this was Pooh Dingleberry's first directing role.
So, like, I loved all the little quirky things in this movie too. Like,
and that's our show.
when they're sitting in the police station, and he's trying to bribe the police officer, and he slides the money across the table. And he's like, I can't take that. And he's like, fine, don't. And he puts it back in his pocket. And he's like, don't be mad at me. He's like, I'm not mad. I'm just a little bit more rich, you know. And then things like that.
More
and then
money for me.
yeah, and like how he views the world, like when he blows up, when he like they're all giving him props for building that device, and he's like, yeah, man, that's so awesome. And then it blows up, and they all start freaking out, and he's like, what do you mean? What are you mad about? That was awesome, you know. And and like when he searches the internet, he uses Google like he's asking it a question. How to make an explosion for special effects, please and thank you. Or, how do I make a movie with my friends? Thank you. And just the way he addresses that stuff. And like one of my favorite parts is when he goes to the diner to meet the chick from Brigsby Bear, and she's sitting there, and the police cars are coming in, and he's like, those are for me. And she's like, those are for you. He's like, yep, and I'm a better of an outlaw. And then he walks out with his hands up, and he's like, please don't tackle me this time, you know. So just the way he approaches things about this movie, it's very endearing. And
I wonder how much of that was kind of improvised. How much of
I don't know.
Some of his little shtick like that were improvised? Because he, you know, years of being on SNL, you would think that a lot of his lines just probably came off the top of the head.
That's Kyle Mooney's humor. If you watch SNL, it's this very kind of like, he's a very VHS nostalgic kid, and he really is like, a lot of those old skits are like, hey, it's me, Todd. And he's like a skateboard, you know, and it's shot in like 1995 style camcorder, and he's like, I'm about to do an awesome trick. Check it out. And he does something like shitty. He's like, it's pretty sweet, huh? Like, so that cadence, he brings a lot of that, his type of humor into it. It's got his fingerprints all over this movie.
Like
I think
he does an episode of a comedy show called Josh. You can find it on Amazon Prime Video, and it's kind of that very much that same humor where he's like on a girls' church like talk show that she's forced to have him on, and it opens up with like, this was shot 3 weeks before she was murdered, and like it's this whole like church fair type thing and abstinence thing, and he's just got that dry, direct humor, and it's really
he's an expert at it. He's an expert at the dry delivery. I was watching Beck Bennett has moments like that where he does that too, but he and Kyle Mooney did a segment for SNL at Home a couple weeks ago where they were like sitting there trying to figure out what skit they needed to write a skit for this SNL at Home, and they couldn't think of anything. And they just started taking their whole conversation and remixing it to like hip hop beats and stuff like that. And then Fred Armisen, who also has a very similar kind of humor, comes in and starts adding his stuff into this little remix of his stuff. But it was just completely out there and awkward, and like who thought of this? And only somebody with that kind of just obscure comedy could really do that. I don't see Adam Sandler doing something like that and it's sticking, right? It wouldn't be as funny if somebody like Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell or something did that, because they are more of the slapstick kind of funny, you know, where Kyle Mooney is more of the almost like intellectual funny to a point, if you exclude Dick in a Box that he wrote with Andy Samberg. But
I don't know how much he had to do with the Lonely Island stuff because he's not really part of that.
I thought it was the three of them. I thought it was Andy Samberg, him, and the other guy.
No, sorry to burst your bubble.
Well, he's on the first album.
Well, according to Justin Timberlake on Hot Ones last week, Justin Timberlake was the one who really pushed Dick in a Box.
Well, it sounds like Justin
I
Timberlake.
saw that too, yeah.
Sam's one of his favorite movies is what is that movie with Justin Timberlake?
Friends with Benefits.
In Time?
In Time.
Dude, that's one of my favorite sci-fi movies. That movie's fantastic.
I feel like the first two acts of it are fantastic. I feel like they could have done some really heavy-hitting things in the final act, but they decided not to.
Yeah, there's a great article on it on couchcrunchers.com. Plug.
One of my favorite movies of all time, Stuber. Thanks for
There's a real Oscar.
Tyler.
Let me tell you, I watched that movie on HBO, and I want that hour and a half of my life back because that movie was
such a
trash.
I started. I got 20 minutes into it, and I said no.
Tyler sold the shit out of that movie.
Yeah, we're like, wow, okay, I guess it is good.
I spent $6 to rent it when it came out, like available to rent, and I was so pissed at him. I still give him crap about it. I'm like, dude, and I need to delete that article from our webpage because it's still sitting there 5 stars on our webpage. But no, that movie is such a shame, dude, because Kumail Nanjiani has a certain amount of.
Lance, you just don't understand. You don't understand. Stuber is Tyler's Brigsby Bear.
You just have to add a caption on the bottom that says Tyler's opinions do not reflect those of Couch Crunchers and those associated with Couch Crunchers.
Oh man.
I'm gonna ask a 2-part question brought to you by Comic Exposure. Shit,
we're doing plugs now.
Yeah, you wasted yours on Stuber. You waste. If you want to hear more about Stuber, go to Absolute Geek Podcast.
Oh, God, I didn't know we were getting plugged now.
So, as a way to talking about like this movie's comment on fandom, what like niche show from like the 80s or 90s do you think would benefit from a hardcore, like if you personally had to take like a nostalgia niche show from the 80s or 90s, a la Brigsby Bear, and remake it into like a fan film where you're going to spend some time doing that, what do you think would benefit from that? Or what would you like put the time into doing?
There is one show that I'm kind of I'm a little sad that nothing's been done to it already. It's The Adventures of
Pete and Pete.
No, Max. What's it? Where's the red hat? And he goes and he has the big talking owl. What's his name? The Adventures of Max. They had a toy line out with him so there was Polly Pocket for the girls, and then this Max. Oh crud! I can't remember.
Lance, were you kidnapped as a child? And this is some made up.
No, once I show you guys the picture, you guys will. You guys
know him. He's got a hat. He's got a little owl. He sounds like my mom.
You guys give yours. I'm going to find pictures of this.
My answer brought to you by AbsoluteGeekPodcast.com. David the Gnome. I think David the Gnome could be a killer kids movie. David the Gnome. You don't remember David the Gnome?
Is that the one where he dies at the end?
No, David the Gnome was the little gnome. He used to like ride the fox. It was a Nick Jr. cartoon.
Was it like puppets or was it cartoon? Oh, it was a cartoon. Yeah.
It was a cartoon. Yeah.
Those better. I think those are better answers because they're like very small, like like very personal, probably very short run shows. I think those make for good, like what no one else does. You're reintroducing it to the world. I think that's a good ingredient to have for a Brigsby Bear show. Another response brought to you by AbsoluteGeekPodcast.com. Bobby's World. The
Bobby's World cartoon. Do you guys not remember this? Mighty Mac?
I don't remember your black screen. No.
You guys don't see this?
I see it.
I don't see it. I just see a black screen.
I don't remember it. So to be fair, I did not.
There was a whole toy line and everything. It was an awesome show. He goes back in time with this little red cap and stuff. But
he looks very Aryan. It's blonde hair, blue eyes.
He looks very Aryan.
Dude, David the Gnome.
Aryan, check out Couch Crunchers episode on Jojo Rabbit.
Aryan plug.
Where did he go?
Oh no.
There you go.
What happened?
I don't know. You just
Matt, David the Gnome keeps coming up in lists of cartoons that had darker endings than you realized.
Hey, I haven't watched it since I was knee high to a PI. So
he dies at the end.
David the Gnome.
Yeah, the gnome.
Dude, I do remember this.
He dies at the end.
If he dies at the end, that's fine.
I never watched it.
He turns to stone and he gets placed in someone's backyard.
And that's the end, huh?
That's fantastic. Make that a movie. Let's go. I'll pay to watch that.
Travis, Sam, did you give one?
I haven't given one yet. So I didn't have cable when I was a kid. I would race home to see Gargoyles. That was what I was always
too. Now there's been rumors that something's going to happen on Disney Plus because Gargoyles, when Disney Plus came out, Gargoyles was one of their top watch shows on the network. It kind of built this whole new audience because Gargoyles was very dark for the time it came out. I think it was on Fox Kids or something like that.
No, it was on Disney Afternoon.
Disney Afternoon. Yeah. So that show has developed a bigger audience, and the director has come out and said that
you're just progressive, Lance. It was on Fox Kids. That was way before they even thought about buying Fox. You're just progressive, I guess.
I think I'm going to create a fake show that just gives fake comic book news and movie news, so Lance can watch it. And it'll be like, I heard. You
gotta write fake articles that go with it that he can quote too.
I heard on the show they could send directly to my email that they're going to make a new Gargoyles.
No, don't do that. We already get suckered enough, man.
I think that's just more proof to go to show that Lance was kidnapped and had shows made just for him as a child.
I'm amazed you guys don't remember Mighty Max.
Mighty Max Boy 1 and Mighty Max Boy 2 are just your captors, Lance. I'm sorry to break that to you.
No, remind me, Lance. Does Mighty Max end with the show restarting? Like he time travels back to the very first episode. Is that how it ends?
I don't remember.
I think I did watch that show, but it was
a big show. They had a toy line that they had Polly Pocket. They would advertise these two together. They had Polly Pocket. Do you guys remember Polly Pocket? They were the little figures like this. They had Polly Pocket, and then they had the Mighty Max figures that were for boys. The exact same thing. It came in a little clamshell, and they had little figures about this tall.
Yeah. How many Mighty Maxes do you think ended up in adult men's rectums?
Yikes. Good night, everyone. That's been Couch Crunchers.
So as of 2 years ago, Jordan Peele actually pitched a Gargoyles movie to Disney.
Disney shut him down.
Yeah, they said that because it didn't follow with their movie plan, right? Their plan was Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and then live action remakes of their animated classics.
See, but what they didn't anticipate was how much traction it was going to get on Disney Plus, because Disney Plus came out in September of last year, something like that. So Jordan Peele pitched this before.
That show has had such a cult following its entire existence. So
I love
the addition of it to Disney Plus. I don't think did anything to push that. It's been pushed in the background for years, and they've just never let anybody do anything with it.
What I'm saying though is that when Disney Plus came out, it was the top viewed show on that network besides Mandalorian. Yeah, like Mandalorian and Gargoyles were their top two shows making them.
Why mess with perfection, man? You know,
Sam, who's your favorite gargoyle?
And why is it
besides Goliath? I mean, everybody's is Goliath, but besides Goliath, I would say Desdemona, probably because I was a big fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and she was voiced by Marina Sirtis. There were a lot of Next Generation alums in Gargoyles.
The voice of Goliath was David. What's his name? He's been in a lot of stuff.
Go ahead, Lance. What's his name?
Oh, God.
You say his name, Lance.
The line has been cast.
No, he's
in the water.
The spokesman for Allstate Insurance now, right?
No, that's a different guy. Yeah. The Allstate guy? Allstate is...
no, he's saying you are.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm the spokesman for Allstate?
Yep.
No,
All American family.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what he meant. I'm just messing. I don't know if that's what he meant. I'm just messing around.
I like how Matt
Liberty Mutual.
I like how Matt left the chat and came back in. So now we can do this. Now we can like pound each other because now we're aside.
Oh, wrong way.
Wrong way. There we go.
Boom.
That's good podcast. That's good audio podcasting material. Yeah, Gargoyles would be good. I think I'm going to go here because I'm looking at my room. I think I would go My Pet Monster, but not a cartoon. I like the Brigsby Bear aspect of the puppetry in it. So you'd have to have like a My Pet Monster kind of like puppet, you know, type of thing. Real life. Let's do it. Real people. Let's put a freaky puppet in there. And just go to town. No, I mean,
oh, yeah, I remember My Pet Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cuffs. So when he broke the cuffs, he became a real monster.
I think I had this. Speaking of My Pet Monster, the first thing comes up is a very Aryan-looking boy that it's on that show. I think we have a theme here.
Yeah. And I would like to say My Pet Monster.
Did you guys ever see a show? It was on the WB called Ronin Warriors. It was kind of
yeah.
Was freaking awesome. And I think it only lasted
Lance, you might like anime, bro.
My brother and I woke up every Saturday morning to watch that show. That show was awesome.
Can you still remember recite all of the their Power Ranger type formations?
I just remember it was an anime version of Power Rangers, pretty much. It was kind of the same thing. So that came out around the time that Power Rangers was really big too.
Yeah.
So my brother and I would watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then we watch Ronin Warriors, but it didn't last very long. I think it's a long-running anime, though. The book is, right? You can still
find it on Tubi. Ronin Warriors is available on Tubi.
The cartoon?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna go watch that.
See, you did it wrong. My childhood was Power Rangers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, Batman the Animated Series. That's what my after school TV was.
Dude, you got all the Power Ranger copycats in there.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, VR Troopers was VR Troopers first? I thought VR Troopers was. Oh no, it wasn't VR Troopers. Voltron was not Voltron. Voltron. Am I thinking of the right thing?
They took elements from Voltron. The Megazord thing is Voltron.
Yeah. Yeah, but
so what do you think?
Go ahead.
What do you? I mean, to get back to Brigsby Bear, what do you think that the movie's saying about like what do you think interesting conversations it's saying about fandom and nostalgia?
I think that it's recognizing how it shapes you. That there's nothing to be ashamed of when you're a serious fan about something, as you can see by I'm displaying my toy collectibles behind me. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. I think that everybody had some sort of fandom when they were a kid, and a lot of us now carry that into today. And I think it's made us who we are. I think you have to be a more what's the word I'm looking for? You have to be more you have to embrace those things a little bit more than maybe some people do now.
Yeah, I think what Brigsby Bear gives Jamocha Shake a vehicle to connect with people and to negotiate the world, to understand the world that he's in. And that's a lot of what the cartoons that we consumed as children were trying to give us, is a way to understand the world and to connect with people. And you can still use those nostalgic things to do that today. You know, that's all I see at Comic-Con is people wearing their fandom literally on their sleeve or as a costume or cosplay, whatever, and using it to connect with other people. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it.
How hard would it be to have something like that and not like how James is and not be able to connect with other people? I couldn't imagine that.
It didn't take him long to connect with people, though, right?
Right.
As long as Spence didn't have his eyes glaze over and say, "Oh yeah, well that's interesting," you know, that had been what had happened to Jamiroquai many times, explaining it to his parents and to his sister or to his therapist. Their eyes would glaze over, and they'd say, "No, that's the product of a fevered mind. You know, that's the product of a sick person. You can't use that to connect with people." And then finally, Spence is like, "Yeah, that is cool. You're right. That is cool. I accept that."
Well, he was kind of really the first person to indulge him. He didn't write him off or dismiss him like his family and everyone else was doing. Like Spence was kind of the first person to be like, cool, man. And really, like I said, meet him on his level instead of trying to force James to come up to theirs.
That's another cool part about the fandom as well that this hits on is that Jaguar Jackson is the only person who has seen this show, right? And so fan culture is all about
all three of you.
One of the beautiful things about fan culture is sharing new things. Like, oh, here, like you've never read Why the Last Man? Oh my God, check it out! It's like, and we're a very sharing culture. You know,
that's what I love about your podcast so much. You guys get into a lot of stuff that maybe a lot of people haven't read.
You mean comicexposure.com? Yeah.
You guys get into some weird stuff. I mean, I never would have once thought of picking up a Sabrina comic book before you guys had Jay and I do that, or the Archie Riverdale comic, or whatever it's called.
Right.
The Tales of, what do they call that? The haunted.
Yeah, the haunted ones are Death of Archie.
Death, yeah. So I would have never thought to pick something up, and it was one of the best reads I've ever had. Were those Archie comic books that you had me read. So
that's how like our own like fan culture gets so big, is because we just like, even Brigsby Bear, like Matt brings up Brigsby Bear like shares this. He goes, you know, like I want to share this with people. You know, if you like this, and you're gonna like this, and I think that like the fan nostalgia culture is really good about sharing things, and we're open to trying things more than maybe some other types of like cultures and things like. Maybe not.
Well, fandom can be infectious, right? I mean, you see somebody having so much fun and love for something, like you want to be part of that, right? Like you want to feel that too when you see those.
Lance. No matter how much you love Pops, it does not make me want to go out and start collecting them. Right?
That's a man that I'm sure has a few sitting.
He's like, yeah, it's like when you love things and you're like this.
Even if you're on the same level as Gin and Juice McKenzie from Brigsby Bear to you know, try to get me to collect Pops, I'm not doing it. Sorry.
Have you guys ever taken someone to a con who's never been to a con before? That's always a kind of a fun experience where they're like, I have no idea what to expect. You're like, come on, man, just like, come with me, embrace it. And they always have a good time. Even if they don't know what like half the shit is that they're looking at. Like, what's that? You're like, right. Like someone used the word infectious. And I think there is something about fan culture that's infectious. And we see that with Brigsby Bear. Like Sam said it doesn't take very long for him to find allies and like-minded people, and Brigsby Bear takes off. You have that moment in the store where the YouTube guy comes and he goes, "You're that kidnap boy. I love that show. Like, can you sign this? Can you take a picture?" You know?
So I brought Tyler and his brother to their very first con. It wasn't a very good con, but they thought it was the greatest thing. It was Ace Comic Con a couple years ago, and they thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I was like, guys, this is nothing. You know what I mean? Like, because I was pissed that whole time, but they were just like, look at all this stuff. Like, there's what's his name from the Kingsman? Taron Egerton was sitting.
Oh, I can't believe you forgot his name. I cannot believe you forgot his name.
I should have just said Wolverine. Wolverine.
I think you need to go get checked out for Alzheimer's or something.
You need to take down every Taron Egerton pop from your collection.
I don't have a single Taron Egerton pop. I don't have any.
Dream about Taron Egerton.
You're always talking about Eggsy. You're always talking about Eggsy.
I don't have any Kingsman pops.
In the throes of maritals, you whisper to your wife, "Call me Taron Egerton." You know, it's always there for you. You know, you can't. Man. I can't believe you forgot that name.
Oh my god!
Wow.
You didn't check your fan card at the door, man.
Yeah, you're showing your old age, buddy.
We were sitting there, and they were just amazed that these people were just like giving these interviews, 10 feet away from us. And I remember the time that I went to my first Comic-Con. I think I was with Matt. Matt, was I with you in my first Phoenix? I think we were all together, right?
When was your first Phoenix? Was it last year?
No. 3 years ago? I think
no, it would have been last year. That's the first time I hung out with you at Phoenix.
Oh, well, I remember the first one I went to, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's people that are just like me, you know what I mean, that love the same thing. Like, you always feel kind of secluded when you kind of have this nerd infatuation, I guess you can call it. And then you go to these huge Comic Cons and you're like, oh wow, I'm not alone. There's people that like this, and there's people that are into the same things I'm into and stuff like that. Facebook has done a lot of that too. I think you're able to find groups of people that like-minded things and stuff.
Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
No, guys, I was gonna shift it, so go ahead.
As long as this isn't brought to you by comicexposure.com.
no.
I'll let you
Thank you for that.
I was gonna say it's amazing what conventions can do, and that's I'm a big advocate for conventions, and that's why I'm so broken hearted that San Diego got canceled and that Phoenix got pushed. But let's be honest, that's probably getting canceled too. There's nothing, and I'm a big advocate for, if you want to go to a convention, like a convention like Ace is a perfect place to start, because you don't want to get overwhelmed. You can build yourself up to those more popular conventions like San Diego, but there's something indescribable about being in crowds of people that are into the same things you are and that accept you for the things you like, and that are in the same culture. There's just something indescribable about that feeling. And it's amazing all the years doing this. Like, I met Kyle at a Phoenix convention before I knew who he was. We stood right next to each other and talked to each other in a line for Stan Lee and a line for Robert Kirkman. And it's cool going back and talking about con stories with people later on. And you're like, oh yeah, I was right there. And oh, we talked to each other. Like you find that out. Like you had conversations about this stuff with these people before they actually become your friends. So it's a crazy environment to be a part of. And I love it. Like I
don't know if I could ever forget meeting Kyle. Kyle,
that was well said.
Kyle has one of the most, like, just, I don't want to say anything that's like offensive. I'm not trying to be offensive, but he has one of the most like energetic, cartoonish personalities I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Like, the man is just like, you know, you're like, how do you have this much energy all day and complain about everything everybody else does?
He's an enigma.
I know.
He's one of a kind.
Love that man.
I brought a couple of my friends to Phoenix Con, I don't know, like 4 years ago. And one of my favorite things was they were like having a good time. And we're kind of going up to, you know, the vendors and stuff like that. And there's this one vendor who had this girl slinging comics. And she's an absolute smoke show, right? Just a smoke show. And she had this like Spider-Man shirt on with Mary Jane on it. And so I'm sitting there looking at the comics, and my friends are next to me and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, that's a sweet Mary Jane shirt. And she looks at me, and I every now and then I'll get like my left nostril, my nose like just dries out and bleeds. And so I'm like, that's a sweet comic Spider-Man shirt. My nose just starts pouring blood. And she's like, your nose is bleeding. And I have to like run to the bathroom. My friend's like, you are a fucking dork. Like, we talk to a girl and your nose, I'm like, nice Spider-Man shirt, and my nose just starts bleeding.
Oh my god.
Like, I'm so embarrassed.
That's such an anime meme, dude. That is such an anime meme.
You go to a place where dorks, like, you go to a Comic-Con, you catch dork, and its symptoms are bloody noses when talking to girls.
You catch dork. That's the best way to put that.
Nice like Spider-Man shirt. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
That's a classic pervy nosebleed, man. You totally had a pervy nosebleed.
So now I'm always terrified. I'm always like, I'm just like, all right, keep your blood pressure down. Be cool.
Travis is like, I got to make sure I got my nose plugs in before I go to any vendors. And
right, I'm taking Vaseline. I'm like, that girl's pretty hot. Let me get a scoop here. Let me get a scoop here. Let's go.
That's awesome, dude.
He always cosplays as Edward Norton's character from Fight Club, just because he can explain the bloody nose.
He's always a zombie at cons.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But dude. I will say, in Brigsby Bear,
period face.
I will say that I thought it would have been nice if they had brought the other side of the conversation, maybe the downside of, or like one, because there are some things about the over nostalgia and the like too much fandom. I think that it is a slippery slope, and there are some kind of, there isn't a counter argument to people who are constantly spending their time consuming stuff from their past and things like that. And I was kept waiting for that part of the conversation to appear in the movie. And I realized it just wasn't that movie, but I thought that could have been worked into it as well. And it would have been nice to see that counter conversation in there.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean exactly, Travis?
Sometimes, we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of conversation talking about things that are maybe like 30 years old, right? And there are people who are like, hey, instead of, spending all your time and your money doing that, some people say that nostalgia is like you're chasing a feeling rather than like the actual like story or the thing that you like. There's a sense of trying to recapture a sense of something you enjoyed in the past, and it becomes maybe like a crutch for maybe not dealing with things in the future. Am I making up this kind of argument? Or is
that more sounds like an argument from a man who just got a girlfriend rather than anything else. That's what that sounds like. It's like you've got a girlfriend and you're like, man, I can't spend my money on comics or anything anymore. I gotta spend it on going on dates and being a grown up. That's what that sounds like.
Maybe Jackie McPherson, I don't know, it's run out. Maybe he should have gotten a girlfriend this episode.
He tried.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I like that
he
scene.
got a little bit of a handy and he ran out of the room because it felt good. So
yeah, dude, that's another spot where it could have gotten dark. That's another spot where this film could have gotten dark.
Well, and wasn't she a minor and he was like a grown man?
How old do we think Hal Mooney's supposed to be playing in this movie?
He's in his 20s. They make it. I think he's in his 20s. Yeah, he's like 23 or 24.
Because remember, he's viewing season 25 or volume 25,
like 700 episodes. Yeah,
and ridiculous. So if each volume is a year, he's at least 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It could be closer to 30 because who knows how old he was when they started Brigsby Bear, but he's at least 25.
And his sister kind of scolds him for that. She's like, "Don't do that. That's gross,"
Yeah.
So
here's what you don't do: you don't give someone who's just got out of kidnapping ecstasy. You just don't do that.
Hey man, he's down for anything. He was down for everything. He was the perfect party animal. He's down for everything.
Explain it to him. They're just like, "Hey, you want something?" He's like, "Sure."
Yeah, right. What is this? It doesn't matter. Just take it, little boy. All right, we're good.
Dope
shit. Yeah, it's dope shit. Yep, that's right. It's gonna be dope shit.
No, but that scene where he goes up to her in the woods and he's like, "Hey, do I have to marry you now?"
I don't think I can marry you.
Yeah. I don't think I can marry you. She's like, "No, you idiot. Like, what's wrong with you?" He's like, "Oh, good. I've been thinking about that all day. But you know that other stuff we did? We could still do that stuff." And she's like, "You freak."
And I'm
kind of like the same reaction that Travis's Spider-Man girl,
right?
When he started bleeding all over. Get away from me, you curly-haired Ed wannabe.
I like how she tries to open
at that
up.
point, my hair was flat iron straight, just bangs, just anime bangs.
I like how he tries to open up, or she tries to open up to him about her family. She's like, "Yeah, my mom and dad hate each other." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool," and like completely misses the mark of what she's trying to say. But
oh
so
man, what do you think the future holds for 1.21 gigawatts?
Like I said, I think he's got to deal with some stuff. I think once he starts realizing what he's missed, as he starts to view himself in this, like how he is different based on if he has that sense to view the world, he'll have to deal with that. Or he could just go and be like, you know what? They applauded at my movie, Brigsby Bear 2. And
oh yeah, he becomes an acclaimed director. And this was the origin story of one J.J. Abrams. That's what you don't get.
Well, that's actually not a bad comparison about these people who grew up watching these really kitschy things and then taking it to the next level and using some of those elements in there.
Well, we kind of saw that on YouTube, right? With the guy that redid Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Did you guys ever see that trailer where it was done really dark?
Yeah. So
somebody was so in love with Fresh Prince that he made like a gritty reboot trailer of it. We've seen the Power Rangers. James Vanderbeek, I think, was in that, and did a gritty reboot trailer of Power Rangers. So we see it kind of happening now of these people taking technology into their own hands and kind of making these projects into what they see them as, right?
But I think that was a sign of the times, though, because if you watch a lot of like shows that were popular when we were kids in the 80s and 90s, like they were very dark and gritty and very dark, adult, dark undertones. And you can't even still get some of those today in some of the Pixar movies. Like they have very adult undertones, but they kind of fly over kids' heads because they're cartoons and flashy and fun to look at. But
that's what makes it so good.
Yeah, you as parents pick up on it, and it's
that's why Onward. Everybody that I've met, especially men who have seen Onward, all say the same thing. How it kind of was a tearjerker a little bit. My kids just saw it as this funny road trip movie, but to me, it brought up feelings of my dad, of my brother, of my uncles, and my friends, things like that. Guy friends that I've had, that brotherhood kind of mentality. That's what makes those movies great.
Just say his name. Just say Max. Get it over with. Let everyone know that you're talking about your relationship with Max.
So much.
Guys,
Max is burner.
Just down the street from me.
Yeah,
we're gonna be within spitting distance.
Oh yeah, because you guys already spit on each other as it is.
Oh, shut up, dude. Sam, where do you think James is at after this movie?
So if we're to take the analogy from the movie, he's closing the chapter on Brigsby Bear and he's opening a chapter on a brand new world that's his to create. I think people, it's an analogy for all of us, right? This is what we do is we take stuff we know, we transform it into something new. So I think, Matt, you're not far off. I think he's probably going to keep making movies, but try to find his own story to tell outside of Brigsby Bear.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the movie kind of sets it as when that hologram or whatever it was of Brigsby Bear is waving from his imagination, is waving to him at the end. I think that kind of like is just putting that end note on the Brigsby Bear chapter. I think that he just develops a love for movies and he starts trying to create more. He's got a whole group of friends that love doing it with him. He just starts creating more because he created that whole story. The whole story of that movie, like he wrote it. He did. You see him drawing up the storyboards and everything like that. Like he created it. I don't think it's the end for him at all. Now, let me just cap it with this. I don't want to see a sequel to this movie. I like where it's at. I don't want.
I don't think you get a sequel to this movie.
No, I just don't want people to be confused by what I'm saying. I think it's okay to imagine where this character is going, but I don't need to see it.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
But yeah, so let's talk a little. That was great discussion on this movie, guys. If you haven't seen it, it's available. It's not available to stream anywhere right now, but you can purchase it from Amazon, Vudu, Fandango. Now it's available on all those carriers, and it's relatively cheap. I think I only paid $10 for it or something like that.
It's like $13. Yeah,
$13. Yeah, so it's pretty cheap for an outstanding movie.
Is there an echo in here?
Great runtime too. Great runtime.
Yeah, it's pretty short too. We watched it. We watched it pretty late, my wife and I, and it didn't take that long. But let's talk about some Fabric Flubs. I'm just pulling.
Wait. Are we gonna cushion this bad boy? Did we cushion?
Oh yeah. Sorry, Travis keeps us. Travis keeps us in line.
This Couch Crunchers correction was brought to you by ComicExposure.com.
Shameless plug.
If it's Matt not telling me that I screwed up the opening for a show, or Travis not telling me that I forget to do the ratings thing, usually I have Matt here texting me and like, hey, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. I'm just a face, dude. The brains is all, moving his crap from Colorado to Arizona right now. So, but let's see here. So, Matt, let's start with you. What rating do you give this movie?
I give Brigsby Bear, for me personally, a 4 cushions and a throw pillow. Wow. I love the underlying tones of it. I love the story behind it. I love that. You can have anybody sit down in this movie and no person's going to see the movie in the same light. There's like the same way with Parasite. There's a lot of discussion that be had. There's a lot of stuff that you can break down with this movie, and I enjoy it. I probably watched it at least 6 times since you bought it on Vudu. So, you know, it's fantastic to me. So.
Yeah, I tried to get it over to Travis. I was like, "Hey, are you allowed to watch Vudu in Japan? Like, do they have that there? Because I can send you my login." They don't have it there.
Yeah. I'm sure if I got a VPN, I could do it. But
yeah, do you run a Mac?
I do.
There's a free VPN, gives you 10 gigabytes a month called Wondershare.
Wonder Bear.
Share.
Wonder Care.
10 gigabytes a month. So
nice.
But what, Travis, what's your ratings on this movie?
4 gigabytes. I give it 4 gigabytes and 1 megabyte. I give it 4 cushions. 4 cushions. I think that I really enjoyed the themes. But I also realized that this is a personal review. This hit a lot of topics that are very near and dear to my heart when it comes to creativity and fandom and nostalgia. I thought the performances were good. I'm stepping away from the throw cushion and the other full cushion for 5 because I feel like at some points we're cobbling a lot from past films. There's a cobbling from things. I guess we always do that, but I felt like it felt reminiscent. So I think for me, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. But would I watch it again? Maybe. I don't know. That review didn't make any sense. I'm horrible at cushioning things.
That terrible review was brought to you by
Speaking of comicexposure.com, what do I got to do to get Josh back on the show?
He's a busy man. He's a busy man. I don't know. You can be like Absolute Geek and get him when he's like really shit canned. That's a funny episode. I've never seen him so drunk on a podcast before.
That's the only way to do our show.
He was a real bully. He was a real bully on that show. It was very anti-Josh.
Sam, what's your rating on this movie?
I'm going to give it 3 cushions and a throw pillow. I really enjoyed it. And for me, movies with low stakes are like those are my jam. Like you can rewatch those again and again. There's not like a big emotional investment on the front end. And it feels like the payoff on the back end is pretty good. Like I said, it reminds me of movies like Safety Not Guaranteed. It also reminds me of this great BBC series called The Detectorists, which is about people who are really into metal detectors and finding stuff with metal detectors. It's like I said, it's low stakes. There's not a lot of emotional investment on the front. Like think about how much effort it takes to watch The Dark Knight. It's a big time investment. It's a big emotional investment. It's a great movie, but do you always have time and energy to put into that movie? And the answer is no, you can't. You can't always be on a Dark Knight level. A lot of times you just want to sit and chill with something that's low stakes, that's easy to get into, it's really accessible, and that's Brigsby Bear. I really enjoyed it. I could easily be talked into watching it again, but I also want to see what other kinds of movies out there like this. So yeah 3.5.
And like I said, like I said before we started, and I'll let you go, Lance. I'm taking over your show. This interruption has been brought to you by AbsoluteGeek.com. There's so much. You guys, like I said, you guys review a lot of blockbuster movies, big impactful movies in theaters, and what's popular. And maybe you got to take a step back sometimes. And if that's what you're looking at, not just you guys, but even your listeners, if that's what you're looking for, step back and look at some independent movies, because there's some fantastic film out there that you're missing out on if you're just looking at what's big and popular in Hollywood.
I agree.
And take it even a step further. Go to watch those subtitle movies. No, this interruption is brought to you by comicexposure.com. And
we're just competing. We're just competing at this point.
And a little something. Which way am I going here?
Everyone is a winner here.
I think that that sentiment goes to even like I can't.
Other arm, Travis. There you go.
I can't. I don't know how geometry works in mirror shapes. Yeah, but I think that goes to even independent and like foreign movies as well.
Parasite definitely opened my eyes as far as the value of foreign movies. I've watched some foreign TV shows that are dubbed, but never. I think the
one time watching My Hero Academia doesn't count.
So I've seen Dark, I've seen Rain. I've seen a lot of the Netflix ones because you don't really know
Dude,
you get into them.
Right.
But before Pan's Labyrinth, I mean, Parasite was the first movie that I really got into that was subtitled like that. And
I was talking more about like pornography, like porn and stuff like that, but I guess that applies too.
Tentacles of bust.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
Tentai. They call that Tentai for short.
But they have to be like from Indonesia. I want like Indonesia Harry Pitts. I don't want that domestic Harry Pitts. No.
So I think I'm going to echo a little bit of what Matt and Sam. I'm at a 4.5 out of 5, but I agree with Sam as far as the rewatchability of this movie. It is a movie that I can sit down and watch again. We've done a lot of reviews recently, even like 1917 and stuff like that. That's kind of affected my rating a little bit because I don't know if I'm emotionally capable enough to sit through some of those movies again, right? But I love them, right? This movie is such an easy watch that I'm glad that I purchased it. This is one of the few movies that I purchased without watching it first, but I'm glad that I purchased it because I definitely plan on watching it again. So the performances of the main stars are fantastic. I highly recommend anybody to go check out this movie. I hope Kyle Mooney does more stuff in the future because he hasn't done a lot of things outside of SNL and this movie from what I remember. But I hope he does more stuff because I think he definitely has a career as an actor ahead of him outside of
the one takeaway to take away from this almost 2-hour episode? Listen to Matt from Absolute Geek. He knows about cool shit to watch. That's what it is.
Matt got me to watch Letterkenny, and it was one of the best things I ever did. Hey, show us all your Shoresy hockey jersey that you got.
Oh, it's over across the room. Hold on, I'll get it.
Okay.
I was wearing it last night because like people are like it's 100 degrees. Yeah, but my house is like 60. I'm freezing.
You're lucky.
I was wearing it last night, but I'll get it. Hold on.
I am definitely not the keeper of the air conditioner unit in my house. But while he's getting that, I'm going to show you guys the cartoon images that I did of our dear friends Matt and Travis.
Here you go.
Oh, all right. You show that first. Look how awesome that is. Have you seen Letterkenny, Travis?
Yeah, I have. I watched like maybe like the first like 4 or 5 episodes. They're the really short ones, right? And they're like Canadian or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're 69 short.
Certain seasons have longer episodes than some of the other ones. So like there's like little mini seasons that have like 5-10 minute episodes, and then there's other seasons that have like full 20-30 minute episodes. But let me share this here.
Shoresy.
So here's Matt.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I had to add this little stubble in here because he looks like
Dad, the freckles, man. The freckles are what sells it.
And here's Tom Holland. I mean Travis.
Thanks.
Dude,
thanks for throwing in the wrinkles too.
That's straight out Shia LaBeouf, circa Even Stevens, bro.
But you two have been on the show so often that I've got like all these cool little cartoon images of Sam, Tyler, Max, and I, and I've been throwing just like a clip out of your guys' picture on the thing. So I think you guys have been on the show enough to where you should have.
I am honored. I am honored to make it.
Just don't put it on a T-shirt because he's gonna hit you up expecting royalties. Just
a digital bobblehead
for that.
That's not what it said. Kyle puts that picture on the thing. I was like, that's my drawing that I used for my show. Like, what is it doing on there? No, that shirt turned out awesome though. No, sir, that's an incorrect statement, right? It's that shirt.
Yeah, his signature shirt. Yep.
Great shirt, which I'm still waiting for mine in the mail. That's the only royalty that I'll accept is a shirt. But let's get into some Faberflubs. I think we had an excellent discussion about that movie, and we'll post what we're going to talk about next week because I have not yet decided.
Yeah, so join us next week as we talk about Bad Boys for Life. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That hooked me up with a digital copy of that movie, so I'm going to be watching it.
I think it's funny that you brought up The Room, Sam, because I tried to get him to watch. I was like, you guys normally review 2 movies. Let's do Brigsby Bear and In the Room or mid-90s. And he was like, how do those movies...
Disaster Artist.
Yeah, and the Disaster Artist is what I said. He's like, how do those 2 movies relate? And I was like, oh, God.
I hadn't seen Brigsby Bear yet. I was asking a legitimate question, like, why are we watching this second movie? Like, tell me how they, like, what is the similarity between these?
They're all about ordinary dudes making movies, man.
I started the semester of school this week. I'm taking 4 credits. There's no way I could have watched a second movie.
Be Kind, Rewind would be a good pairing with Brigsby Bear.
I actually have. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, that's about them making their own versions.
Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. If you haven't seen that, that's a fantastic movie too.
Yeah, that one's based off a book that's very good as well. Have you guys seen that, Sam and Travis?
No.
When I get the urge to go choke random people, I watch Perks of Being a Wallflower. That went over everyone's head.
No, I teach that book in high. I teach that book in high school, and it's so awkward.
I didn't even know that was a book.
Yep.
I didn't know that movie was based off a book.
Yep.
That's the one with Logan Lerman, right?
And Ezra Miller. That's why I said choke people.
Oh,
there it is. There it is.
All right. So let's talk a little. Well, first I want to know, are you guys watching anything right now that that you want our listeners to kind of check in on, that maybe stuff that people aren't viewing right now? I know Sam's going to say One Punch Man, but
he presumed on you, Care Bear Stare. He's presuming on you.
Yeah, Lance thinks he knows what I'm into. He has no idea, and he has never once accepted any of my recommendations.
I got a kind of a bone to pick with Sam, though. I was eagerly awaiting your review of the season finale of Better Call Saul, and I never saw it get posted.
Oh yeah, I haven't posted anything since I started studying for the California bar.
Yeah, that's commitment, my friends.
I know.
But yeah, oh man, Better Call Saul this season was dynamite. It was so good.
Already had their season finale.
Yep, it was last week.
Did you watch the finale?
I did.
I thought Bad Choice Road was the highlight of the season, but the last probably 10 minutes of the season finale were so good, and they were so tense.
Yeah. Kim's character confuses me big time now.
Kim Wexler is my favorite by far. Like, I don't know what's driving her to do the things that she does. That's the thing that drives me crazy.
Right, exactly. I don't mean confusing in a bad way. Her character, her switch flip this season has been fantastic.
She's so complex. Like there's so many layers. Like there's a scene where she is talking to Howard Hamlin, and you think Howard Hamlin's going to ask her if Jimmy's thought over the job offer again.
Yeah.
Have you thought over that job offer? I don't know. And he's telling her to watch out for Jimmy because Jimmy's doing bad things. He's going crazy. And she laughs in his face. When she laughs in his face, I was so thrilled. I was so delighted by that scene. Yeah. And then it just keeps getting ratcheted up from there. Like what is it she's thinking? What's going to happen? And we're all expecting Breaking Bad level disaster with Kim, right? Because that's what these shows are about. It's about normal people making bad choices and then reaping exponentially worse consequences because of where they're making those choices. It's not at Comic-Con. They're at the cartel. They're dealing with a cartel of very dangerous people making choices, even as well thought out or as calculated as they may be. They still carry tremendous consequences. And so going into season 6, and it sounds like it's going to be sooner rather than later, we're all feeling very tense about Kim Wexler's future.
I think we've had this discussion over Facebook about if this show is close to Breaking Bad or where it's at compared to Breaking Bad. And I honestly think that this season's villain, he's the most complex villain and best flushed out character in Breaking Bad history.
Oh yeah, Lalo Salamanca is terrific. First off, he has knees that don't give. He never quit.
Mm-hmm.
He can jump 9 feet in the air. He can jump 9 feet with no problems. He does it twice in the season or in the series. There's one in season 4 where he like drops down through ceiling tiles into like a copy store and he kills the copy store clerk. And then in this season, he jumps from like a road down into like a wash, and it's like a 9-foot drop, and he just hops down like it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this scene where he pulls up at his hacienda, which is full of drug cartel lackeys and guns, and the guard at the gate is holding an assault rifle. And he pulls up in this black SUV that they don't recognize. And then when the window pulls down, he's got this big shit-eating grin on his face. It's so funny. It's such a funny moment. And it's so characteristic of who Lalo Salamanca is.
I think that's what makes him so intriguing is he'll kill you with a smile on his face. And that's what makes him so complex and so hard to read of where he's at is because, normally you see what these people are about and he's not like that. Like he'll kill you while he's smiling. He's such a good character. It's so well done. I love that series so much.
Yeah, Bad Choice Road was the penultimate episode, but the one before that I thought was also very, very good. So those 2 episodes I think were the highlight. And if you go on IMDb, they're both Bad Choice Road is rated like just a few spots down from Ozymandias, which is considered the best episode of Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
So these are like 2 of the best TV episodes of all time, and they're both in the same universe. So it's a pretty special thing going on with Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould's creation here.
I'm gonna have to watch it. I've been meaning to watch it. It's just not a show that Anna gets into, and
no, it's just not a show that Matt had recommended to you. So
that's what it is.
Only takes recommendations from Matt. If Sam says it doesn't matter. But if Matt says it, there you go.
Says the guy that got me to go sit in a packed movie theater with sweaty nerds to watch Hero Academia. I went and saw that movie and I enjoyed it. And I've started watching the TV show.
Yeah, well, so you should listen to me more often.
Be a little nicer to me. No, I want to watch Better Call Saul because Breaking Bad I think is one of the best television series I've ever seen in my life, and more of it is just I haven't even watched the El Camino movie yet with
El Camino's okay.
See, but for me, like watching Breaking Bad and then Better Call Saul, and then I go to start to try and watch it. I'm one of those people that missed the boat on Ozark. I didn't watch it. And people rave about Ozark. I think Ozark sucks.
Dude,
I think it sucks because it is a watered down, try hard, bootleg version of Breaking Bad.
Ozark offers so many different things than what Breaking Bad did. It's Breaking Bad, like it's almost like he never gets away with a lot of the things he's doing, right? And ultimately he doesn't. I mean, the end of the show, we all know he dies, right? Mm-hmm. Every single time he doesn't really get away with some of the decisions he does unless he does something completely disastrous. Ozark offers you a point of view from somebody that somehow, some way gets away with everything, right? All the cards are stacked up against him. And this guy is so intelligent that he finds a way out of it every single time. This last season of Ozark, because I binged the last 2 seasons.
Well, Walt is very much like that in Breaking Bad. He gets out of almost every situation.
And I'm not trying to disparage Breaking Bad whatsoever. I just think Ozark and Breaking Bad, though you can compare the two, there's also some differences between the two, because Walter White in Breaking Bad, he never really has that moment of success for the most part, right?
I disagree, but
not in the stake like what Ozark is. Ozark, Jason Bateman and his wife are like pillars of the community, right? They're the most successful people they open a successful casino. They They own multiple properties. Like, these people are pillars of their community. Walter White is never really a pillar of his community, right?
I think he is. He's respected. He's a respected teacher. He's respected in a lot of ways in that community, and they do a lot of stuff community wise, like with Gus and Hank and stuff like that. Like, I think Walter White is looked at as a pillar of the community, and that's why he was so
I don't
beloved.
think in the same respect, but you got to watch Ozark to even to even understand what I'm talking about. Like, these people are politicians, and like, they're the most powerful people in this community. Have either of you seen Ozark, Sam and Travis?
I got through season 2. I haven't started season 3. I find it super dark. Like, it's so dark. It's
very dark.
It just will depress. It will depress you. If you're having a great day, it'll put a stop to that for sure.
I think in a lot of aspects, it's darker than Breaking Bad. But it's fantastic storytelling. I love it. And Jason Bateman does a really good job of playing kind of this neurotic, smart guy like that. This guy should have died in the first season, judging by, but his mouth always finds a way to get him out of things, but not a mouth in kind of like a smart ass kind of way, right? Because you know how
oral favors.
Yeah,
you know how get out.
Right? It kind of Lance is kind of talking like, what are you talking about here? Like, what is he doing with his mouth?
Know how some people get out of tense situations by being a smart ass, right? This guy,
Saul Goodman.
Yes, exactly, right. He talks out of the side of
you
his
wouldn't
mouth.
know. You haven't watched the show.
I've watched the first season.
Okay.
And he was.
I'll believe you. I'll believe you.
He was in the entire. He was pretty much in the entire show of Breaking Bad. So I'm familiar with the character, but Jason Bateman does it from a point of reason, right? There's an intellectual behind what he's saying, but you got to give Ozark a chance, dude. This last season was.
I have given it a chance. I can't stand it. I think Breaking Bad is a much better series, and I don't like Ozark whatsoever.
Yeah, it's great. It's a shame that you don't like it, but to each his own. So let's well, we haven't heard from Matt. Matt, what are you watching right now that you want people to watch?
Nothing. I mean, all of the shows are pretty much ended or hiatus wise. I'm super stoked. If anybody on this show or that listens to this show has never checked out Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's a show to check out. It's coming to Netflix, I believe May 1st, all 3 seasons, and I'm gonna be binging the crap out of that once it comes out because I'm super excited.
Oh, when I saw that headline, I didn't realize it was the cartoon. I thought it was that crappy movie that came out.
That is also available on Netflix.
Yeah, that is also available on Netflix.
I didn't realize the cartoon. I didn't click the article because I've never been a fan of that. So, but I thought it was the crappy movie. I was like, why the hell is this getting an article? Who cares?
I'm actually thinking about taking a page out of Grizzled Geek's book and doing reaction videos to it, and as doing through my rewatch of it.
Well, none of this is new, right?
I love that series. No.
Yeah, okay.
But it's good. It's a really good.
Series.
It's a really good and beloved series from Nickelodeon.
I know. There's diehard people. I mean, even my kids know what it is, and it's pretty sure they weren't alive when it first came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old is that show?
Oh man.
Oh, dude, it's like 15 years old.
Yeah.
Now, and this might seem completely ignorant. The Airbender show and Naruto have nothing in common, right?
No, they don't. No, not at all.
I mean, there might be similar themes, but they're not.
No, they're not in the same universe. Like, they don't have the same characters. Like, nothing. Okay.
Nope.
Because the Naruto pops. And
please stop saying Naruto.
Am I saying it wrong?
I mean, there's no right or wrong way, but I just don't like the way you say
it. At least he's honest.
How do you say
Naruto? It? Put the emphasis on the na rather than the ru.
Oh.
Travis is over there just like, these filthy nerds.
Sam's got it.
I had no idea that when you go to buy the pops, those characters are right next to each other. So I thought they had something in common with each other. I don't know. I always see them right next to each other, but I guess they just have both fan bases.
No. Yeah.
But Travis, what are you watching?
If I had to recommend something, it's about 4 years old, but I just binged it. It's called La Casa de Papel, but on Netflix it's called Money Heist. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh.
It's a Spanish subtitle, so it's Spanish language, but it's subtitled in English. Fantastic. It basically like 20 episodes is like one heist. So you really get the in-depth of it. It's very stylish. It's very stylized, a la, not as stylized as say something like Guy Ritchie, but it has those kind of beats to it. It's very fast-paced. It's like if Guy Ritchie a film, but it had like Spanish novella involved in it, and extend that out, fantastic. It became like a worldwide phenomenon. I just never watched it because it's just one of the things that wasn't on my radar, and I just loved it. It really sticks with you. There's the characters stick with you, and you think about it for several days after you kind of go through it. So that'd be my pitch.
Actually,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say there is a show I've been watching that I just thought of, but go ahead. I'll let Travis finish.
Well, Money Heist recently have new stuff come out.
Yeah, they had the 4th season. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought something just got released because Netflix has been telling me to watch it.
Yeah, I think it's like they're probably like 38 episodes total, hour episodes total in the show. So
okay,
you're looking for something long to get into. Yeah,
I'll have to check it out. Matt, what was the other thing you were going to say?
I was gonna say, if you're a fan of Letterkenny, you should check out Dave on FXX. It's also on Hulu next day. Little Dicky, the rapper Little Dicky, fucking fantastic show.
Watch that, dude.
Fantastically funny show.
So I wanted to watch similar humor.
What's that?
Similar humor as Letterkenny.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I'll definitely be checking that out. So my wife and I started watching the new Apple TV show, Defending Jacob, with Chris Evans. It's only 3 episodes, which I'm kind of confused by because we have half the last episode left, and it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. So, and it says limited series, so the jury's still out on whether I'm going to be pissed at the end of this show or not. But so far, it's been very good. Chris Evans, it's a different role than what he usually does, and it's he's a very likable guy, right, in anything he does, and that's no different than this show. The other one my wife and I just finished was Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu. That has kind of like This Is Us and A Million Little Things type vibes, but it's a lot more. There's a lot more sinister stuff going on in it. It's a limited series. It's only 1 season. It just ended this last week. That was a very good show too. So I recommend everybody watch that. Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington are the main characters in that, and it's very good. But thanks guys for that. We got a couple headlines that I want to talk about real quick, and then we'll call it a night. I know Sam's not very excited about this, but a Hunger Games prequel movie is coming out with the book releasing this May. Are either of you guys Hunger Games fans?
I mean, I read the books. I mean, I taught high school, so I read some of those series that they're talking about them a lot. I saw the first 2 movies, didn't see the last. I just kind of didn't really like what they were doing. I don't know. It's not bad. It's not good. It didn't capture my attention. So I didn't finish the series. So I didn't even know they were coming out the prequel in the book. I probably won't read the book. And if I don't read the book, I'm definitely probably not going to read watch the series unless things get really bad.
Like there's nothing left to watch.
Yeah. I haven't watched Better Call Saul yet. I will watch the entire season of Better Call Saul.
Like he's locked away
before I watch
studio apartment.
Speaking of, before I get into Matt and Sam, is it like how's it going over there in Japan? Like with this whole thing, is it more strict than it is here? Like,
it's starting to get that way. No, Abe, the prime minister, has basically said, like, businesses, you should be closing down. And in Japan, it's very different. There's no mandates, but if someone says it, like someone with authority says it, then you just do it. Like, you don't have to make it a mandate for society to follow it. It's like if Abe comes on television as like, businesses, you should be closing, letting people work from home. You should avoid public transportation. You shouldn't be only going to stores. It's not, we don't have to say, all right, we're closing this down. People just do it. So it's a very, like, you kind of say it and you do it. Again, like, you have the outliers, you still have people, but you go on trains here, which are normally packed, and there'll be empty. If that's the
Does he-
case, they
does he
don't
tell
serve like
people to-
alcohol after like 8 o'clock in most restaurants that are still open to keep people from going out and like spending the night in bars and things like that. So that's how they kind of got around that. But it's just a different culture. People, if you tell them like, hey, for the good of the community, you shouldn't do these things, then they're not going to do them. So it doesn't feel, even though we have a lot of the same restrictions in place, it doesn't feel maybe as oppressive or as urgent because it's not as, commanding of a way to do it.
Now you live on
it's on the
base,
rise
right?
and stuff. No, I live off base. Yeah.
Oh, you live off
I
base.
live in the economy. Yeah.
So when you're on base, do they follow the same things that are going on here?
No,
or
on
do-
base it's on base is like they're real tight. Like you're not allowed to leave your residence. Because an on base is a small community and everyone uses the same things. There's one post office, so everyone goes to that. There's one commissary, everyone goes to that. So everyone uses the same. Everyone in that community uses the same like 6 facilities. So they have to be a little bit more strict on that. And plus, that's government property. Soldiers are government property, and if someone gets sick or it spreads like that, I mean, they look at a lot of times the U.S. government in here. They look at it like if you get a bad sunburn, you can get fined because you damage yourself. You are government property, and so that type of thing. They take care of their soldiers, but they also view them as like assets, the way you would a tool. And so there are consequences for people who compromise those tools.
Have they started issuing you your government mandated glass of bleach and shot of Lysol?
I just do apple cider vinegar.
Oh,
So what were we talking about before I was asking about that? Oh,
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. So Matt, how do you feel about Hunger Games?
I've seen the movies, read the books. I think it's very much like Harry Potter, in my opinion. That series ran its course. It's time to die, and it's very much the trope in Hollywood today that there's no originality. Everything is remakes or reboots, and that's what we're getting more of here. Is we're getting more Hunger Games. And are there really people out there clamoring for more Hunger Games movies? Or I could pass on it. I
agree with that. With that sentiment, what the difference here between this and Harry Potter though is this is actually coming out with the book first, whereas Harry Potter, it just seemed like the filmmakers were just making movies according to what they want to do.
Barnes and Noble, a young adult rack though, is literally littered with dystopian young adult novels. I mean, that's like probably one of the most popular genres of novels for young adults. So it's like, okay, we'll just invest that money in another property, pick a book, any of those books off the shelf, put some talent behind it, and it's gonna have similar ideas to Hunger Games. All those like the same as the Maze Runner.
They did that though. Yeah. Divergent, Maze Runner.
Oh, that's true.
They have
those that weren't successful.
They did exactly that, right?
Maze Runner made a modest, not Hunger Games level, but Divergent flopped miserably.
Really?
They didn't even make the last movie. They filmed the last 2 movies were filmed together, and they only released half of it. And then there was talk that they were going to release the other half in television form or something like that without Shailene Woodley and everything. There's been a lot that have flopped. They tried it with Percy Jackson, flopped. There's been
that's not a dystopian deal.
No, but it's still in that YA, like YA properties in general.
That's more a Harry Potter knockoff than it is a Hunger Games knockoff.
I agree, but I'm just talking about YA properties in general. There was another one, The Fifth Wave, which was a very popular book. The movie flopped. There's been The Number 4, which was supposed to have a bunch of sequels. Flopped.
I Am Number 4.
I Am Number 4. Yeah. There's been a lot of these YA properties that more of them flop than don't, if you really think about it. I mean, they're all trying to chase that Twilight level of success. And really only Hunger Games and Harry Potter for that have really done it that well. Maze Runner to a certain degree, but the rest of them are just flops.
Yeah, no, I don't hate on their idea of doing like a prequel, but it's just I probably won't go see it.
Yeah,
no, hard pass on that.
Revved, yeah.
Sam, I know you hate Hunger Games. You hate Katniss. You hate.
I mean, I don't know how anybody gets through that series and says, "Oh, I love Katniss." Katniss is, by her own admission, she's a horrible person. And at the end of reading the books, like I went and saw the first movie with my wife. She's like, "Oh, you should read the books." I read the books. And I was like, "Why'd you make me read these books? I hate Katniss now. She's the worst person." And it just made it like a chore to go see the Hunger Games movies because Katniss is not a likable person. She's not a likable protagonist. And I'm not interested in going back to see the start of Snow's career when he's a horrible person too. Everybody in the Hunger Games is horrible except Peeta. And then, you see what happens to him.
Yeah.
so
he's
like,
just a simple bread maker, man. And
he's
then
a simple guy, he's a good kid. He has a crush on a girl and it leads him down the darkest path possible. And so it's like, I have no interest in going back there. I had no interest in going to the first time.
And this throuple relationship where on the outside and underneath he's just secretly a cuck, and it's just so weird. Like it's just such a weird series, man. For
real. I hate it so much.
So I actually like them. I'm not that interested in a prequel.
Shocking.
I think that it was nice the way it was. I don't think we need anything to add. It's the same way I felt about Fantastic Beasts when they came out with those. I don't understand why they keep having to hammer on these things.
Because they're bankable properties, man.
I know they make money.
Proven financial successes. You see how hard it is to get people to buy into a YA high concept, or maybe not even that high concept, but YA dystopian series. Divergent is so up its own ass about stuff. Like I hate it so much because like all these groups with their SAT, glossary words, and we're the Divergents, or I don't even remember what they called themselves, Jamocha Shakes, or whatever you want to call them. But they're all so stupid. They're all so high on their own supply. I hate it so much. And Hollywood realizes that there's such a big risk. And because they are easily picked apart, they're kind of phony, tissue thin concepts that are driving these movies, and it's very easy to pull them apart.
They got to be somewhat intellectually thin, right? They got to, because of the target market is not men in their mid 30s. The target market is 14 to 17-year-old kids, right? So they can't put the majority of those kids are not in this intellectual stratosphere where you can go highbrow with some of those concepts.
Now I know you're making fun of us right now. You're trying to make fun of us. We're sitting around. Not. We just spent almost 2 hours talking about Brigsby Bear, which low production cost, low budget, but quality movie. And
right. But would a 14-year-old like that movie as much as we do?
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It's so accessible. It's so easily understood what it's trying to portray, and it's so relatable. And a lot of these YA dystopian things they struggle because they're not relatable, and the concepts that they're built on are very shaky.
Right.
Society doesn't look like they try to the society they're trying to sell you in Divergent. People don't shuffle into classes based on a personality trait. It doesn't work like that.
I can't wait for Coronavirus the movie coming in 2024.
Because of coronavirus, everybody who was an extrovert had to be locked into concentration camps, and now introverts run everything.
In a world where extroverts are outlawed.
There you go. There's Divergent right there.
Yep.
So the next bit of news, Venom 2.
Guys, I'm actually I have a budget about 2 hours. I got to head out here, but I just want to say before I do, I appreciate the Brigsby Bear, because I wouldn't have probably picked that up anytime soon. So that was great. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk to you next time. Okay, Travis, thanks for coming out. We're going to finish up here in a couple seconds.
They give us an up.
This just looks terrible.
Thanks, Travis. Let's give a quick rundown real quick on the last couple items. They don't need a lot of comment, but except for the last one, we'll let Sam go into that a little bit. Venom 2 title officially released. Let There Be Carnage. It's being delayed to June 25th, 2021. We kind of already knew the movie was Carnage based, right?
Yeah.
Tenet will open July 17th unless theaters are closed.
Tenet.
What did I say? Tenant? I meant
Tenet.
You
said tenant.
I meant
like
Tenet.
A renter.
Tenet will still hold its release date unless theaters are still closed.
You guys notice that Christopher Nolan only makes movies about time? Like all his movies are time themed, with the exception of the Dark Knight trilogy. They all revolve around twisting time. Like Memento, the whole movie's backwards. Or Inception, you have like 4 different timelines running at different speeds. Or The Prestige, which is like you have different timelines informing different other timelines. You know, it's like you have 3 different things happening at the same time. Yeah, all his movies are about time. And then Tenet is like it can move forward and back. It's like you're watching real life play out and rewind and fast forward.
I've never even heard of this movie.
Tenet?
Yep.
So they played they played like a 15 or 20-minute clip before in the IMAX before Star Wars. It has Denzel Washington's son in it. So Max, Ben, and I went and saw it, and they played 20 minutes of the movie before Star Wars.
Yeah, not for my showing of Star Wars. They didn't. I don't remember that.
I saw Max is addicted, and he doesn't want to go by himself. But I think I saw Star Wars with him 3 times.
Interstellar is another one too.
Yeah,
that's only one time.
Only one of those showings, and the one at the IMAX had the sneak peek of Tenet. So I don't think it was playing at everyone, but it was kind of cool. Like it was there was like this opera going on, and Denzel Washington's kid, I can't remember his name, the one from Ballers. I don't know if you guys have seen Ballers.
Yep.
He has to stop these bombs that are going to go off in this opera house, and they're like messing with time and stuff. It didn't give you a whole lot of insight into the movie, but it was still kind of cool. It was a real tense thing. I'm going to go see it. Christopher Nolan hasn't really let me down yet. So, except for The Dark Knight Rises, but
usually if they have to release like a 10 minutes of a movie to try and gauge your interest, that tells you that it's not going to be a very good movie.
Well, has he really? I mean, with his original properties, has he really disappointed you yet?
I think with Nolan, it's all in your point of view or what you're looking for. Because there's some Nolan movies that I don't particularly care for. I mean, yeah, you get your normal ones like Inception and stuff, but I didn't really care for Interstellar. I thought Interstellar was kind of shitty. It was great visually, but otherwise it was kind of like a boring snooze fest.
Max loves that movie, and I like it, but I don't love it like he does. That's probably the weakest of his movies that I've seen, but I loved Prestige. Memento is fantastic. What's the one with Leonardo DiCaprio? We just said the name. Inception is really good. I thought Inception had a really good ending and stuff like that, except for Marion Cotillard. What's her name?
Marion Cotillard.
Yeah, I think she's a horrible actress. I hate her, but she's the only weak part of that movie.
I think my issue with Nolan is just like Sam said, all this stuff is time based, and he plays it very safe, and he does the same. It feels like the same movies, minus the Dark Knight trilogy, but the same movies over and over again about the same subject matter, and it's not really that different. I still haven't seen 1917 yet, so I can't comment on that one.
Yeah, no. He did
Mayday.
No, not 1917. Yeah, the
one with Tom Hardy. What is it called? It's Dunkirk.
Dunkirk, yeah. Dunkirk. That's another one where you have multiple timelines and then they all converge at the same moment. You know, it's like 1 week out, 1 day out, 1 hour out, and then they all converge at the same moment. It's another one that plays with time. All of his movies play with the idea of time being malleable or being unconventional.
So that if they ever do a 24 big budget movie, he should do it.
I guess.
I don't know. We've been doing it 2 hours and 23 minutes. I'm starting to run out of material here.
I am eager to see Tenet. I think Christopher Nolan, he has an interesting way of dealing with time, and I think he keeps going back there because it's a well that keeps producing, right? You can get tired of it, but he's still got new ideas about time, and his movies do entertain, and they have moments in them that really stick with you. Interstellar, for the most part, I agree, it was kind of snoozy, but it was less so than Ad Astra, which Max really enjoys.
God, that movie was terrible too.
I didn't even watch it. You remember I had tickets. So this brings me to another point where Sam thinks I don't listen to any of his recommendations. I had tickets purchased for that movie. Sam goes, "It sucks. I returned my tickets."
Good call.
That was a good call.
You need to watch it. It's amazing. Sam says one thing. It's awful. I returned them. Max went on for days of how amazing it was, and I just took one word from Sam.
Max is an interesting dude, but I think like he could watch paint dry for 16 hours, and as long as at the end of it said Star Wars, he'd be all about it. He'd be all excited for it. So it could be like a 16-hour snooze fest, and then it's like Star Wars. He's like, "Oh my god!" And he just loses his freaking.
I love him more than you guys know. I mean, the guy is my brother through and through, but he does like movies that I'm still questioning to this day. Why
he's one of those mild-mannered dudes, and I picture like him having a very bland conversation over a very bland dinner, and just everything is just bland. And then
the thing, he's not like that. And
I know.
No, he is. He sits there and he will say something that has a very obvious double entendre or innuendo, very easily connected to what he's saying, and he will not recognize that he has said something dirty.
He's a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
But he's one of the greatest guys I know, man. I will die for that guy. I love him. But one last thing I want to talk about, because I know Sam is very eager about this. One Punch Man is getting a movie by Sony Pictures.
Isn't it? I thought it was a Netflix film.
No.
I think it's a live action Netflix film, isn't it?
But is Sony producing it?
No, Sony's producing a movie. They didn't say anything about the medium of release, or the distribution method. They just said that they are working on a live action One Punch Man movie. And there's always some trepidation with anime adaptations, and rightly so. I mean, anime adaptations gave us Dragon Ball Evolution.
Jesus.
They gave us
my wrist now.
Right. They gave us The Last Airbender. But there are other anime adaptations or manga adaptations that are really, really fun to watch. Edge of Tomorrow is really good. And that's
I didn't realize
adaptation.
I didn't realize that came from an anime.
Yeah, the manga, well, it's not an anime. It's a manga called All You Need Is Kill.
Okay.
And I think Edge of Tomorrow is better than All You Need Is Kill.
It's called Live, Die, Repeat. All right. Let's get the name right. All right. I'm just kidding.
Sure.
I'm just kidding. That comment was brought to you. That smart ass comment was brought to you by comicexposure.com.
Comic Exposure. I was also going to say Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson. I know that got panned, but it was mostly for social justice reasons, and it had very little to do with the content. It was actually watchable. It wasn't horrible, which is, kind of the low bar set by Dragon Ball Evolution. And then you had Alita Battle Angel, which is another adaptation.
Oh, that one was awesome. I love that one.
Which was a pretty awesome movie. Netflix had a Japanese-produced Bleach movie, which was pretty good. And the thing that Bleach did right is they didn't try to tackle the entire first season of that show. They basically adapted the first quarter of the first season of that show, and that was really good. And
they also had horrible Death Note adaptation.
Yeah, that was the other one that I wanted to bring up. And add that.
So I haven't read any of the back stuff. I liked Death Note, but I didn't realize it was.
Read the manga or watch the anime, and your opinion will change.
Well, it's totally different than the product that those things are. If you like Final Destination, Death Note is right up your alley. Like that's the kind of movie that the Netflix Death Note adaptation is. It's just like a Final Destination movie with a little bit of cat and mouse thrown in. But Death Note, the manga, or Death Note, the anime, those are battles of wits, right? That's that's a mind game.
Game of chess, yeah.
Yeah, and it had very little to do with like the gory details of the death, and it was more just a way that these two characters could battle it out. And L, the main detective in Death Note, doesn't even have a major role in the movie, and which shows you how far away from the source material they strayed. And so you did this really tough balance with anime movies, which is how much do you stay on the source material and how much do you stray? We have lots of anime adaptations in the works right now. You have a Cowboy Bebop series being produced for Netflix. You have a One Piece live action series being produced for Netflix. And now the announcement of a One Punch Man series being produced by Sony. And the question is, well, what's important? What's the most important thing? And I think the most important thing is that you get the themes right. The effects are definitely important, but only in as much as they allow you to tell the right story with the right theme. One Punch Man is at heart a satire that becomes its own story. It satirizes the superhero genre, but then it turns itself into something different in the second major story arc, which is the Monster Association arc, centering on the hero hunter Garo, who has something important to say about all these so-called heroes that is mirrored in the way that everyone is treating him except for Saitama, One Punch Man. And it's a fascinating story, and it's something that I hope that they do right. And that's really the important thing, is what's the theme? What's the center of that's driving the tension, that's driving the story? And that's something that Death Note got completely wrong, right? They took the idea of the battle of wits and they did it completely wrong. They focused instead on they changed the relationship between the girlfriend and Light Yagami, and they changed that into the main tension builder, and it was never. And that's what really pissed people off, I think, is that they missed the mark as far as what's the theme, what's the central conflict driving the story.
All I know is I just can't wait to see the kid at they got to use prosthetics because I want that giant butt chin from the first episode of One Punch Man
funny
to be on there.
Crapalante and then the kid with the butt chin. Oh my gosh.
They don't have that kid with that giant butt chin. I'm not sold.
So I was just looking at some things online. So Old Boy was an adaptation of a manga or manga.
So Old Boy is a Korean work. And I don't know where the source material came from, but it is so dark. Oh my gosh, it's so dark. Yeah. There's a lot of live action adaptations out there. Battle Royale. You guys watch Battle Royale? You know what that is? You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
A lot of people will say that that's the proto Hunger Games.
Yep.
Hunger Games basically stole the idea of kids fighting it out to the death from Battle Royale. But the central idea of Battle Royale is that in Japan, in order to teach kids manners, every year they select one classroom out of the whole country to go to this island and battle to the death. And so the whole series is this
and
class.
That's why Travis had to leave the show early. His class
got selected.
His class got selected.
And in the first few minutes of the movie, the teacher is getting up to explain the law and what is about to happen, and the kids can't believe what they're hearing. And then the teacher picks up a knife and he throws it into one of the students' foreheads. and you're like, what?
Like that face on the Lance of pure shock.
Yeah.
I need to watch this movie. Where is it? How do I get it?
It's called Battle Royale. You could probably find it on a lot of streaming platforms. You could probably find it on YouTube if you're really desperate.
I think it's on Netflix. I know it was at one point. I don't know if it's still on there now.
The other one that I was surprised to see was adapted was Road to Perdition.
Road to Perdition
was based off of Lone Wolf and Cub.
There's a lot of movies that are based off Lone Wolf and Cub. That's what Mandalorian is. Lone Wolf and Cub. There's a lot of stuff based off that. Yeah.
I actually just bought that one. I think I'm going to watch it here because we need stuff to watch. So I might watch it this next weekend. But
what, Lone Wolf and Cub?
No, Road to Perdition. I haven't seen that in a long time. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for tuning in. This will be available on Monday on your favorite podcast streaming service. Please go and follow Absolute Geek or Couch Crunchers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You guys are on Twitter, right?
Oh, yeah.
Twitter, Instagram. And make sure to tune in next week. We will release on the Facebook and those.
Bad Boys for Life. You heard it here first.
Only if Matt agrees to come on next week, we'll do Bad for
I don't know. I got to check my busy schedule. My busy schedule of quarantine.
Max and I have been wanting to watch that one, and Matt was so gracious to give me his digital download code for that movie. So maybe that'll be it. We'll talk about it offline, but make sure to check out Absolute Geek on YouTube every Friday night at 7:30. 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard. And check out Couch Crunchers here on YouTube on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. As always, I am Lance. With me is Sam. Below is Matt from Absolute Geek. And until next time, keep on geeking on.
Bye.